All right, so welcome everybody to Watch the Obsession True Crime, and tonight it's Saturday night, and it has been a Watch live stream doubleheader. What is better than that? Well, what is better than any live stream is having a special guest tonight who is a veteran with over 20 years experience working in the oil fields, very similar to what Chris Watts did in his job when he was working at Anadarko at the time of the Watts family tragedy. So Kevin is a moderator for this channel and a friend of mine, and he's absolutely awesome, and he's filled with knowledge and has a lot of answers to many of the questions that you guys and so many people have asked about the Watts case to try to make things make sense over the years, having to do with Cervi 319, with the oil batteries, with Chris Watts' work truck, with Geotab, and a number of other things. So Kevin, thank you so much. You are amazing, and I hope you had a great day with your mom, and thank you so much for taking time to be our featured guest tonight. So before we bring Kevin up, so he and I can have a discussion about everything having to do with the oil fields and Cervi 319 and Chris Watts' work truck, and then he's going to answer your questions, I'm just going to bring a video into the stream about what we know happened that horrible morning of August 13th, 2018 at Cervi 319. So check this out. And thank you guys for being here. You know what to do. Please click like, do the YouTube things. I really appreciate it. Let's get those notifications out to other people so they can be here to hear Kevin and ask him some questions when he comes up. So hit that like.
Oil site where Chris Watts. Welcome back to Watch the Obsession. This video is going to take a look at Cervi 319, the oil site where Chris Watts infamously drove to from his home in Frederick, Colorado on August 13th. Welcome back to Watch the Obsession. This video is going to take a look at Cervi 319, the oil site where Chris Watts infamously drove to from his home in Frederick, Colorado on August 13th, 2018, with his wife Shanan on the floorboard of the back seat and his two daughters, Bella and Celeste, also in the back seat of his work truck. Not only are we going to be taking a look at the drone footage of Cervi 319, but we're also going to look at the route that Chris Watts took to get to Cervi 319, the historical weather for that date, and some reports and other related news that is related to Cervi 319. I do want to let you know that this video contains sensitive information and viewer discretion is advised.
They found those children in tanks that were nearly full. And as I have learned from you, the full capacity of these tanks is somewhere between 600 and 700 barrels of oil. That's a lot. So let's just say nearly full is 500, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And, the strange thing to me is openly available, you can find the production rate of that well. And at its best, it was producing about 200 barrels per month. So it leads me to believe that, the oil probably wasn't completely drained out by whoever put the girls in these tanks. They probably shifted the liquids from one tank over to the other one, opened, put it in, and then shifted the liquids back to the other side. That requires quite a bit of technical knowledge, and it does take a certain amount of time.
And let me stop you there,
operation.
Because that was my next question. Obviously, that drill site producing only 200 barrels a month is not going to be able in 4 days, that's the time it took to find the bodies, to fill even one of those tanks up to 600-700 barrels. It would take 3 months to fill them naturally. So just thinking that through, if in fact the opening on the top, and again I'll hold it up, is too small for Chris Watts to, as he apparently according to the police admitted, too small for him to put those children through, he would have had to do it from the bottom, which means the tank would have had to be empty, or he'd have been gushed on by a full tank of oil. So you're saying that there's a pump that goes between those two tanks, and he could pump one tank empty and put the, now that's the, there's the thief hatch, and you can, I think that's your hand, Wesley, correct? Right next to the thief hatch at the top? Okay, so we got a relative
that's my
size.
hand to give you scale. Yeah.
And that's at the top.
Yeah,
This is
so
an
they do
example tank that's similar.
Yeah, that's part of what kind of bent my brain is, I really don't think you could easily get anything, and it's designed that way for you to not drop anything through that top hatch. They keep it very small, so 8 inches is quite small. That's what made me think you pretty much have to take that bottom manway open. And the standard design, there's 64 bolts, and you got to drain all of the liquids out to really, we have
a picture of that. Put the picture up of the bottom manway, because Wesley's also given us an example photo of this tank where he is standing next to the manway. This is the actual site. What I'd like now is the example site of the manway that Wesley shows us, if we can show that. It's called the clean out manway. There it is. And you can see Wesley's hand. Now you can see the relative size of that opening and all those bolts that would have to be opened, unscrewed and screwed back on. And clearly it is at the bottom of the tank. So it's going to have to be that tank's going to have to be literally dry. But Wesley, just in terms of the time, because Chris Watts was seen leaving his house at 5:30 in the morning, and he had to have some kind of an alibi to be working by 7:30, 8:30, or 9:30 in the morning. So there were not, and it's 45 minutes to drive there. So he didn't have an inordinate amount of time at this site to dig a shallow grave for his wife and then do all this work at these two oil tanks. How much time does it take to pump the oil between the tanks? It can't be the same as that forensic vacuum.
No, and I think you could probably do that within an hour, more or less, depending on how full the tanks were.
The drive from the Watts residence at 2825 Saratoga Trail to Cervi 319 that tragic morning took Chris Watts a little bit over an hour. And the first part of the drive is on Colorado Highway, and the second half of the drive is in a beginning to be desolate area, and then the end of the drive, almost the last quarter of the drive, is completely desolate without a single site, a building or person in sight for miles. It's an incredibly eerie trip. The journey from Frederick, Colorado to Rogan, Colorado is about 37.5 miles and is estimated to take about 42 minutes. Rogan is a very isolated, very small community. In fact, the population is only about 440 people, and the size of Rogan is also very small. It's only 1.4 square miles, mostly spanning this vast, vast country land. It is, of course, an agricultural community right there in the community itself, although many residents of Rogan commute to wherever it is they go during the day, and that average commute is almost 30 miles. These are some of the actual dwellings that you can see in Rogan, and a lot of the property there, a lot of the buildings or houses are actually abandoned. There is a big production here, and these almost look like the oil tanks, but they're not. This is a wheat production center, and it's part of the agricultural center that basically is Rogan, Colorado. People who live there and in that area say that the weather can be changing. It can go from very, sunny and dry to very windy and treacherous, and it's seemingly a matter of moments. And because there's so little buildings, population, or anything going on other than this vast Colorado prairie land, you can look out your window or look east or look west and actually see where the weather is changing. So have you ever been in a place where it's nice and sunny and you look in one direction and you can see a storm brewing? So people that live there claim that it's very much like that, but, amplified to what I think my experience is. Now, keep in mind that after you travel that 37 plus miles from Frederick, Colorado to Rogan, Cervi 319 is 9 miles past Rogan, Colorado from where Chris Watts was traveling. And those roads are all dirt roads, or just, as are described in the Discovery, 2-track roads, which really means backcountry roads that really nobody travels. And you're not probably going to get very far on them unless you're driving a truck. .
I just want to point out that this footage right here is literally from the drive that Chris Watts would have taken with his daughters and perhaps his wife in the back of his truck, with Bella definitely alive, aware, and conscious, possibly by herself. We don't know. And if you want to know more about that, watch my What Happened in the Basement video. So, this is really haunting, and, I really should have a trigger warning up.
Yeah, let's do it. A little hair. Ready, set.
Cece, what's
Cece,
Daddy
I am
doing?
so sorry. When you're
Okay, so let's turn to the weather at Cervi 319 on August 13th and August 14th, 2018. First of all, I can assure you that there was no precipitation on Monday, August 13th, 2018. But I just want to get to where we actually have something going on.
Now, I pointed that out because that was an issue that was controversial on Watts Island among Watts channels that debated about what happened on that fateful day. What was the precipitation like? And I've got to say, almost everyone had it wrong. All they had to do was look back into the National Historic Weather archives, cross-reference the sources, find the reliable information, and here it is.
On here, but there's no precipitation on Monday, August 13th. So let's take a look at Tuesday, August 14th, 2018. So you can see here that during the day from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. to noon, and all the way going up until just a little bit after 6 o'clock, there is no precipitation at all. And the temperatures were low, as you would expect during the morning hours, spiked from 12 going up to about 3 p.m. and then slowly declined in the evening, just as you'd expect. Now we see the spike. So you can see the blue line, that's precipitation. So we have a spike at 7 p.m. and then a decline and then another little spike at 8 p.m. So we can see that there was a decent amount of precipitation at 7 p.m. and then continuing for a while and a little more again at 8 p.m. Okay, so if you look at this next chart here, you're going to see that after the 6 o'clock hour, there were heavy thunderstorms being reported in the Rogan area. Now, these were heavy thunderstorms without any noted precipitation. So if you look at 6:53 p.m. and you look all the way over to the right-hand side, you'll see 0.3 inches of rain. And then again, we have another 0.1 inches, and that is our rain event for Tuesday, August 14th. So another thing that is interesting here is how they note the wind speed. So you'll notice at 6:42 p.m., there's a sustained wind of 38 miles per hour. And prior to that, we had sustained winds of 70 miles an hour, 23 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, 18, 13, and 17, respectively. Now, for a sustained wind, that's quite a wind. And 38 miles an hour sustained wind is pretty significant. If you look to the column just to the right of that, you will see that while there were those sustained 38 mile per hour winds, there were gusts up to 53 miles an hour. In summary, the following is the weather for August 13th and August 14th, Monday and Tuesday of 2018.
The weather was collected in Kinsburg. That is the closest historical weather data collection center. It is approximately 1.7 miles from Cervi Ranch. Historical weather records indicate no rain on Monday, August 13th, and moderate rain, 0.3 inches, on Tuesday, August 14th, 2018. These moderate rain continued for 30 minutes to 90 minutes and was followed by some sprinkles, shall we say. The winds were perhaps the more significant event, with moderate sustained wind from the hours of 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., with strong gusts of wind up to 53 miles per hour.
And why is discussing what happened at Cervi that day important and what's going on at Cervi and the drive to Cervi and all of that? Well, there's a few things. There's different theories on what really happened that day. And I absolutely believe we do not know the full truth as of right now. So the weather on the 13th and 14th very much relate to those theories. They can possibly prove or disprove some of the theories. And also something that is very important is understanding the experience of the human beings on that day. If Bella and Cece, Chris Watts' two beautiful little girls, were in fact alive on that trip from Frederick, Colorado to Cervi 319, this journey of over an hour in the back of that truck must have been absolutely horrifying. So now let's take a look at the recovery efforts per the Discovery. Here, I'm reading from Dave Yuckum's report and the Chris Watts Discovery file. An observation regarding Cervi 319. The Anadarko property is the leased property within the Cervi Ranch, which is 35,000-acre cattle ranch located in southeastern Weld County, Colorado. The leased property, known as Oil Tank Field Cervi 319, is used for extraction and collection and storage of raw crude oil from all local wells and pumps. The Anadarko well site was located approximately 9 miles north of Rogan, Colorado, along dirt roads and dirt 2-track trails. The site itself is a 3 to 4 acre property fenced with barbed wire and secured by a locked gate on the west end. The topography and geofeatures consist of sandy dry soil with sparse native vegetation and dry pasture rangeland for livestock. No structures other than oil collection tanks, pumping equipment, and agricultural infrastructure are visible in any direction for several miles. Within the fenced area are 2 large tanks approximately 20 feet in height and 12 feet in diameter. Each tank is equipped to hold approximately 400 barrels of crude oil, which is 16,800 gallons. Also within the site was a wellhead, pumping facilities, waste collection, and venting and pressurizing equipment. Within the site, numerous safety precautions and procedures are in place due to the toxic vapors and volatility of the crude oil gas. Anadarko, Day 1, August 15th, 2018. Due to diminishing daylight, auxiliary lighting was brought to the scene by Anadarko. Located to the south and east of the wellhead was an area that appeared to have been recently excavated and filled back in. The area appeared to be approximately 8 feet by 14 feet in diameter. Living foliage was observed partially buried under the uneven ground. Once the search warrant for the property had been confirmed to have been signed, a more thorough search of the property was done. Items of evidence located were collected and packaged by myself and F.S. Shorter. Photos were taken of the scene with and without markers. Measurements were taken through the use of global positioning or GPS, polar coordinates, and a laser measuring device. Blue Star latent blood reagent was applied to the thief hatch and the tank after positive and negative presumptive tests of the reagent had been done with the expected results. No chemical luminescence was observed on each tank or the catwalk connecting the tanks. On the north edge of the excavated plot was a rusted rake head. The rake head had been placed with a handle attachment portion buried onto the ground. To the east of the plot was a wooden tool handle, as well as a piece of metal that was consistent with connecting a rake head to a rake handle. On the property were 2 plastic bags. One bag was located on the west of the excavated plot, while the bag was located to the south. To the south of the black plastic bag was a bed sheet. The sheet was fitted and consistent with the same pattern and colors of sheets I observed in the kitchen trash at the home of Saratoga Trail. As the search of the site continued, I observed several strands of suspected hair attached to the interior flange of the top hatch, the thief hatch, on the easternmost crude oil storage tank. After the collection of visible evidence, CMS Maloney and I began the excavation of the suspected grave site, approximately 9 inches below the surface grade. CMS Maloney and I located the adult female victim believed to be Shanan Watts. The victim was in a fetal position with her knees pulled into her chest at the bottom of the grave and her feet directed up towards the top of the grave, her chest and face primarily facing down into the grave, while her back was oriented up. Her head was towards the west, while her feet were towards the east. Her left arm was extended to the east alongside of her head. The victim was...
I do want to say, of course, there is a trigger warning here, and I am sorry for, the details having to do with the positioning of Chris's family's remains and whatnot. This is the only video of the hundreds I've made about the Watts case where I've actually read out this information, but I think it is very relevant to our understanding of what happened at Cervi 319, because understanding what happened in this case is a psychological human need that clearly needs to be met due to the fascination in this case. And it also helps us understand that complete justice has not yet been served for these victims. So that's the purpose of this. Nothing of that nature on my channel is ever superfluous. It's always necessary to the topic, or it wouldn't be discussed.
Was wearing a pair of blue underwear and a light colored shirt. The depth of the grave when the body was removed was approximately 27 inches deep. The Weld County coroner took possession of the victim at midnight and 20 minutes on Thursday, August 16th, 2018. All items of evidence collected at the Anadarko site on Wednesday, August 15th were transferred to Detective David Baumhover at midnight and 12:39 on Thursday, August 16th, 2018. CBI remained on the scene throughout the night as part of scene security. Scene processing day 2, August 16th. Images taken through the use of the drone were taken prior to the arrival of investigators and support personnel to the scene at approximately 7:30 a.m. At approximately 10 a.m. on Thursday, August 16th, the process of unloading contents of the tanks in search of the 2 juvenile female victims and other evidence began. Anadarko employees began their subcontractors began the process of unloading and emptying the tanks. This consisted of draining the tanks through a gravity-fed line at the base of each tank into a collection tray, which was 8 by 3 by 6 feet. The tray was then emptied through a 4-inch hose with the 3 8-inch strainer into a vacuum system attached to the tanker truck. Once the tanker truck had been filled and no items of evidence had been identified during the course of the draining of the tank and filling the truck was released with its contents from the scene. Once the tank was empty, entry into the tanks for body recovery could only be done by specially trained and certified personnel. Entry and recovery was done by the Colorado State Police Hazardous Materials Team through a side hatch located near the bottom side of the tank. Entry into the tank could only be done with the use of a self-contained breathing apparatus and full hazardous material protection gear. Atmospheric conditions as well as volatile flash points were monitored by Anadarko employees as well as the CSP hazardous material team. Upon completion of emptying the tanks, a juvenile female believed to be Celeste Watts was found buried in crude oil sludge at the bottom of the east tank. The victim was recovered by CSP and was wearing an orange-pink colored shirt, shorts, and a diaper with no shoes or socks. After the recovery of the victim from the east tank, the west tank was drained under the same procedural guidelines. Again, found at the bottom of the tank in the crude oil sludge was the second juvenile female believed to be Bella Watts. The victim was wearing a pink multicolored shirt and shorts, no shoes or socks. The tanks were both searched for additional evidence by CSP. No additional evidence was located. The waste and overflow tank directly to the east of both tanks was visually searched for additional evidence. No evidence was identified or observed.
Okay. Oh, so hold up. All right.
In beginning.
Okay, so Kevin's just coming back up. Okay, here he is. So everybody, yeah, so the reason I just let that play through is so you could just really, I think it's important to take in that drone footage and the footage of the oil tanks and that scenery of the ride from 2825 Saratoga Trail to Cervi 319 to understand the reality and the severity of this crime. So without further ado, I am going to bring up our oil field expert. Everybody, welcome, Kevin B. How's it going, Kevin?
It's going great. Is audio good?
Yeah, audio is perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Good.
Good.
Fine.
Awesome. How was your day with your mom?
Oh, did her errands for her and stuff, and I guess her and my daughter got Kentucky Fried. They're having a good time.
Awesome. Sounds good. So why not? So Kevin he's a moderator for this channel and a friend of mine, and he has been working in the oil fields for over 20 years and has experience with, the batteries, like the batteries at Cervi 319, Chris Watt's work truck. You've owned that truck before, or a few of those trucks or something like that?
I had probably about 6 of them altogether.
Right. So I know there's been a lot of questions, like, for example, like could Shanan fit in the back? I have a bunch of your questions that you have submitted through the community page. If you have more in chat, we'll try to get to them. Just try to, post them in a way where we can notice. But Kevin, just tell everybody a little bit about your background in the industry.
Well, it's I live in central PA, and just kind of was not going very far work-wise, what do I want to say? No, not successful at anything. And then the gas industry showed up like 2003.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, this is the only thing that's, this is like a way I could do, start a new path, and that's exactly what happened. I went and got trained, and then just kept doing another job after another job, and I've probably been on 2,000 or 3,000 sites. I mean, from West Virginia, Ohio, and Pennsylvania.
So 3,000 sites. So
yeah, and they're all the same. They're almost all the same.
They're all the same. So like the batteries that we see at Cervi 319, like those exact same structures are the kind of structures that you service in your job, right?
Yeah, but mostly mine would be more. Like that has just one well. I have wells where there's 8 to 13 wells on it, or pads. And so if you have 8 wells, you have 8 tanks. So if you have a tank per well, then that way you can isolate how much water is coming out of each well, and you can measure it that way.
Okay.
Or then if you wanted to, we'll just talk about 319 because it's easy, because you got 2 tanks in 1 well.
Okay.
And so you have a certain amount of water in the one. I think it was like 2 or 3 feet, and like 7 in the other. What you can do is open a valve at the bottom where there's a pipe that connects them, and they'll, over time, like in a few hours, they'll equalize. So then you'll both have 4 feet instead of 7 in one and 3 the other. The gravity will push to make it even. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does.
Okay, but there's no pumps on these sites. That would just happen by gravity. That guy in that interview thing,
kind of like the idea of like a siphon.
Kind of, but it's just gravity. It's from the weight, and the weight of the water in one tank would fill up the other tank until they're both even, and it's equal weight in each tank. And that's the only thing you can do without having equipment come on site. And that guy, he has no idea what he's talking about transferring stuff into one tank to another. You can't do that.
That's right. Okay, so let's just play that little clip again, because I was watching, I was like kind of laughing myself. I'm like, I can't wait for Kevin to comment on this. Let's play that clip from the beginning again, because I want to see what you have to say about this. Ashley Banfield, thinking she's so smart with her non-expert experts. Let me just get to it here.
Yeah,
All right, here we go.
yeah, he infuriates me, this guy. I don't know why he's even there.
I know, crazy. All right, I think we talked about this before. So, all right, let me again.
They found those children in tanks that were nearly full. And as I have learned from you, the full capacity of these tanks is somewhere between 600 and 700
But they weren't nearly full.
barrels of oil. That's a lot. So let's just say nearly
Yeah,
full
more.
is 500, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And, the strange thing to me is openly available, you can find the production rate of that well. And at its best, it was producing about 200 barrels per month. So it leads me to believe that, the oil probably wasn't completely drained out by whoever put the girls in these
All right, can you
tanks.
stop it right there?
They probably
Let's do
shifted the
number one.
liquids from one tank over.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, he's talking about a producing well, which means the oil that the well produces. That's wastewater in those tanks.
Okay,
That's,
so tell us
that
exactly
has nothing to do.
what is in those tanks exactly. Tell us that.
So whatever comes out of the ground through the well goes into a separator, and then there's a vessel that's shaped in a certain way that separates the gas from the water from the oil, and then you have different pipes that go to different places. Like if you want the natural gas, you siphon off the top. If you want the oil, you get it from the bottom,
Okay.
or the water from the bottom, the oil in the middle. And then what you have in those tanks is like a oily water residue. So it's not mud, it's not clear water. It's like sandy water. It looks like if you had a glass of sandy water.
Okay.
That's what it looks like, and it don't smell good either. It smells pretty bad.
So it's like it's just very, very crude.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
And plus there'll be remnants of oil and gas that wasn't captured from the separator that ends up in the tanks. There is going to always be some leftover that don't get separated. And so he's talking about, this well only produced so much. That's the oil. That's not what's in those tanks. Those tanks are the wastewater coming from the oil. So that's,
Okay.
first of all, he's totally off there. He don't know what he's talking about. And then you don't have a pump in between.
Chris Watts
What's that?
Chris Watts disposed of his daughters in wastewater from crude oil.
Yes. Then those tanks.
Okay, that's disgusting. And while we're talking about it, let me just bring in a page from the Discovery here that is going to correct what they just said, because they both got it wrong. So this is really the amount of substance, as Kevin just described it, that was in the tanks. So let me see here. So
you would have sludge at the bottom because over time, all that heavy stuff would rest at the bottom.
Okay.
So you would have sludge and like mud at the bottom of the tank, because after all this time, you just can't get it all out from the top. It's just going to keep building up and there would be sludge at the bottom, but the whole thing is it's sludge.
So Chris Watts essentially disposed of his children in like the most disgusting substance you can almost think of.
Pretty much.
Wow. That's really hard to take in. All right. Sorry, everyone. That makes me want to cry. Okay. After arriving at the site, we met with CBI crime scene analyst David Yuckham, Federal Police Department Detective David Baumhover, Frederick Police Officer Scott Coonrod, and numerous employees of Anadarko Petroleum, DT Welding, and North Plains Trucking. Photographs and sign around the sign-in sheets attached. Everyone on scene received a safety briefing from an Anadarko employee, Brett Schisler. During the briefing, we were informed that the east battery contained approximately 9 feet of crude oil, and the west tank battery contained approximately 1.4 feet of crude oil. So, so that is how much oil were in each of the tanks. And Bella was in the one with less, right? I'm pretty sure. I'm I'm gonna have
I
to
think so. I think that's how it was. I think CC ended up with the big one. And yeah, so 9 feet of water means you would need 2, 4, 6. You would need 4 trucks to pull that much water out, and you would need probably 6 altogether. So you would need. That's why that trucking company was there, because they had the tanker trucks to pull the water out, and you would do that through a valve that's on the front of the tanks. This front, underneath where the stairs are, that's the front. The back is where those hatches are.
Oh my gosh, I have to
And
get pictures. I'm sorry. Like, go keep talking. I gotta get your pictures up. Sorry.
that's how you would pull the water out of the tanks into the trucks. And then after you get it as empty as you can, then you'd have to start breaking open those back hatches, but you'd have to have suction hoses there to catch what's going to come out, because you're not going to get it all from just hooking it up to the tanks, and there's always going to be some left over, and those hatches pretty much go straight to the bottom. So whatever's in there is going to come out. And then there's a video or a picture that you had on pretty early on in live where they showed the tanks, and you could see behind the hatches where the oil was spilled. That was after they did the whole thing, because before, when you show the video with the drone and they're flying around, the guys are on top of the tanks, and there's no oil stain under the hatches. But in the other video, there's oil stain because they pulled those hatches off and the oil came out.
See, that makes sense. See, that's the kind of thing that you're able to catch that none of us would really, just looking at it without knowing anything about the oil fields, we'd all just, it wouldn't really mean anything to us, So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's it really makes it easy because the sand is, that bright colored sand or dirt. And when the oil gets on it, it stains it, black or brown. It's real obvious to see when you see the 2 different pictures.
So how extensive a process was it in all? Because you have so much more of an understanding of, what happened there. Whoops. Was it to get those girls out of the tanks?
Well, first of all, the trucks to get the water out, and if they're doing pretty good, they could do that in like 2 hours. And then you would have to have people that do confined space entry, which is those guys that look like firemen. They have to go in to the tanks after they open up those hatches, and try and get as much, of the oil and crap, whatever's left, into the trucks that are sucking, the waste coming out of the hatches that you're opening it. But those guys have to have the air packs, like a fireman goes into a house so he can breathe, because you can't breathe that air in there like that. I mean, you have to, then you would have to have a guy that is watching that guy, and then you have a guy watching that guy. So if something happens to one guy, there's someone else seeing them, and usually you have like a rope wrapped around him, so in case he passes out, you can pull him out, or something like that. But yeah, it's very entailed. I mean, I've never actually seen any reason why they would ever have to open hatches, because, like I told you before, no one ever thought about putting people in tanks like that.
Right. So you're talking about, like, when people ask the question, like, do you really think that they put Bella and Celeste in through the thief hatch, or do you think they put them in through the panel at the side? Right. So tell us about your answer to that. And I know
you can't put them into the panel, because if you were to take that panel off, or even start loosening it with even 2 foot of water in there, that's all going to pour out, and you're going to be soaked with the oily water, and it's going to get everywhere. It's going to be an environmental problem. And so there's only one way, and that's through the top, the hatch, the sea hatch.
Now, I know
that's
one of the questions that people are going to ask is let me phrase the question like this. First of all, just give me a yes or no. Could Chris Watts have fit Bella and Celeste through the thief hatches at the top?
Had to have. There's no other way.
Right.
So yes, there's
Okay.
no other way.
And you gave me the best, and you've probably heard me repeat this before. You gave me the best explanation of how this is possible, because I had a hard time conceiving of it at first. So tell us how that would work.
So if you can imagine hanging up your clothes and you have like a turtleneck sweater, how do you get the hanger into the turtleneck sweater without stretching out the neck? You angled the, so you angled the one part of the hanger into the sleeve, and then you move the, other, it's one then the other, like, okay, one arm, one shoulder, and then the head, and then the other, because they went feet first, I'm pretty sure.
So that's your answer to that, guys. And I know, I know it's hard to think about. And I mean, the way some people phrase the questions kind of like blew my mind, actually, because I don't want to like insult anyone if it was their question, but I was like, whoa. But what Kevin is saying is, yes, they went in through the thief hatches. It's the only way they could have gone in. And yes, even though the most narrow width of either of their shoulders was 9.5 inches and the thief hatch opening is 8 inches, he said, imagine, like putting like a turtleneck on a hanger. You just kind of have to like finagle it in there somehow. You get like one part of the hanger in there, and then you get the other part and you angle it until the freaking turtleneck's on the hanger. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be crude with the analogy there, but I mean, that is how he was.
I don't know how else you explain it without being totally graphic about it.
And when you said that, I was like, oh my God, yeah, I mean, that makes total sense. And that doesn't say, and when you do get your turtleneck on the hanger, your turtleneck is probably unscathed, but that certainly doesn't necessarily mean these little girls' bodies weren't.
Well, they found the hair. They found hair from, I think, Bella around the one hatch, remember?
That they found strands of hair. And that CBI, along with all of the evidence that was collected from Chris Watts' work truck, CBI refused to accept that for analysis, even though it was collected. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I don't know why. And why did they, we can go on for hours why they didn't do what they should have done,
Yeah, that's true. Now, is this you here in this picture?
Yeah, that's me.
So this is Kevin in the picture right here in his work gear.
Yeah, that's the FR that they talk about. That's my winter stuff, because I wear like lots of clothes, and those are coveralls that are flame retardant. So you have to have that to go on site, so they won't let you on. You can't wear like jeans and a t-shirt and go on a site. You have to have long sleeve shirts, even in summer. Don't matter.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Like remember when Chris Watts comes in, they do "Oops, I Did It Again" video. It's August or whatever. It's summer, and he's got a long sleeve shirt on. That's an FR shirt. I have one exactly like it. I have like 6 of them.
Okay. All right.
That's why he's wearing long sleeve.
That makes sense. Now, Nicole Kessinger doesn't have that same excuse for wearing long sleeves when it was August, but that makes sense with Chris Watts.
Yeah, sure. I don't know why she doesn't, but.
Oh my God.
I'm sure she doesn't even have any FR clothing. I'm sure she's never been on a site for Anadarko.
Yeah.
But her job was to stay in the office and change batteries. That was her job.
She wasn't, some people like make it out like she was this like highly skilled like employee, but that was my perception of her job as well. NK, you suck. We just think you suck. That's all there is to it. Just wanted to say that. She went to go be a geologist and then worked on a rig for a while. But the deal on the rig is that every once in a while they take a sample of the mud that comes up out of the ground and they analyze it to see if they're on the right path with the drill bit. And that's what she would have done. Okay. And guess what? There's a lot of people and there's only so many jobs. So that's why she did a temporary gig for Anadarko. Gotcha. Okay.
She was not even hired by Anadarko. She was a contractor for Anadarko.
That's right.
But she worked for a contractor.
But although in her interview, the biggest tragedy of all this was not that Shanan, Bella, Celeste, and unborn baby Nico lost their lives, but that she lost her dream job.
Yeah, that was a pretty easy job. I know a guy that he just he goes in and sits at his desk and pretty much looks at the internet all day. And then and he's the same thing. He's the safety guy. The safety guys don't do anything. Sorry, safety people.
Sorry, you guys don't do anything. Let's see. Floofmeister, and welcome Floofmeister, says, Kevin, thank you so much for your expertise. Also, I used to live in Northeast PA. I feel sort of like a native. And Northeast, I'm in like Southern New York. So Northeast PA is not very far from me. Like, for example, where Brian Koberger was arrested is less than an hour from where I'm sitting right now. So yeah, I know that the oil field became yeah, you don't live too far from you must, I don't know exactly where you live, but I see your area code. So you probably live like 2 or 2.5 hours from where I am, probably.
Yeah, but I'm about a mile or an hour and a half from the New York border.
Okay, like the New York border, like Binghamton? Like
yeah.
up past okay.
Horseheads?
Yep. Oh, yeah. How far are you from there?
I'm probably into Horseheads. It'll probably be almost 2 hours.
Okay, yeah. So you're about 2 hours from where I am. Yeah. Cool. All right. So
did a lot of running up there for repairing. I mean, they're not allowed to drill up in New York, but there's companies that are up there that we use to get our equipment repaired. So I was up in the Horseheads a lot.
Gotcha. Oh, okay, cool. So I'm going to bring that video back into the stream and we can finish watching. You guys hear like a loud boom in the back? When I started playing that video of the drive out to Cervi 319, one of my bunnies is freaking out and he keeps thumping, like nervous, like thumping. It's really loud. I keep jumping. That's what it is. I think he was upset by that too. Like, did you hear that? Did you just hear that loud?
Yeah, I heard that. I don't know what that was.
That's my bunny thumping. He's like he's really.
Oh, okay.
Ever since I started playing the Cervi 319 ride video, he's been like upset. Weird. Okay, here. Let's listen to this guy again. Tell me when to stop.
The other one, and put it in, and then shifted the liquids back to the other side. That requires quite a bit of technical knowledge, and it does take a certain amount of time.
And let me stop you there,
operation.
Because that was my next question. Obviously, that drill site producing only 200 barrels a month is not going to be able in 4 days. That's the time it took to find the bodies to fill even one of those tanks up to 600-700 barrels. It would take 3 months to fill them naturally. So just thinking that through, if in fact the opening on the top, and again I'll hold it up, is too small for Chris Watts to, as he apparently, according to the police, admitted, too small for him to put those children through, he would have had to do it from the bottom, which means the tank would have had to be empty or he'd have been gushed on by a full tank of oil. So you're saying that there's a pump that goes between those two tanks and he could pump one tank empty.
He's wrong.
There's the thief hatch. And I think that's your hand.
So what's he wrong about?
There's no pump to point him. There's no equipment left on pads. They pretty much run themselves. You don't need pumps there. There's nothing in between those two tanks that would, like I said, there's two pipes and they connect the tanks together so you can equalize the tanks if you want to. That's it. You're not shifting water from one tank to the other. That's not happening.
Okay.
It can't happen. You can't do that.
That's what I thought that we had talked about that maybe last time you were on here. And when I heard him say that afterwards, I gotta go take care of that bunny.
I don't know where they got him. He has no idea what he's talking about.
He's not an expert. No. Once again, Ashley, good job.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Like when you see those, they have the video I told you with the oil stains underneath, which is after. If you look around on the site, there's light towers now. There's a porta pot. Remember, they had to go out into the field and to use the bathroom. Remember?
Right.
But they brought all that stuff in because there was going to be people working there. So that's what happens when you go to a site and people are going to be working. The porta pot shows up. Light towers show up, and everything that you need to work during the day and night. If it's in the winter, heaters. They bring heaters in. So like light towers just don't provide light. They're also generators. You can plug household items into it, like lights or anything that you want. You can recharge your cordless drill with a light tower. That's why they're so. I mean, they're great. But if you see when they first get to the site, there's nothing. There's just a couple trucks, and they're flying the drone around. But later on, all this other stuff's popping up. Porta pots, light towers, that all brought in just to do this. Yeah.
So that's not something you normally have in your working conditions. That was just purely for the recovery effort.
Yep. You would do that when we're building them. That was primarily my job, is every place that I had was the construction of these pads. And once everything's built and a well's producing, everything's taken off, and it just basically runs itself. You just got to have someone come empty the tanks every once in a while. And they clean out the cellar of the well. That's called a cellar because it's like a hole in the ground where the well sits, and they suck the rainwater out of that. And so, the water's not, hanging around, because they did bugs and stuff, mosquitoes and stuff live in them, and it becomes a mess. So
yeah.
You every once in a while, like that water truck guy, he just showed up out of nowhere. He was probably on a schedule to go there that day to clean out whatever rainwater was around or empty the tank or whatever.
Okay. Oh, I have a question about that. But here, I'm going to keep playing this video, and I got to go take care of this thumping bunny. So I'm going to play this video, and I just till the end, try to remember the points that are wrong, and then I'll stop it because I got to go take care of the thumping bunny. So here we go. It's loud.
Wesley, correct? Right next to the thief hatch at the top?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got a relative
that's my
size.
hand to give you scale. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's at the top.
Yeah,
this is an example tank that's similar.
Yeah, that's part of what kind of bent my brain is, I really don't think you could easily get anything, and it's designed that way for you to not drop anything through that top hatch. They keep it very small, so 8 inches is quite small. That's what made me think you pretty much have to take that bottom manway open, and the standard design, there's 64 bolts, and you got to drain all of the liquids out to really we have
a picture of that. Put the picture up of the bottom manway, because Wesley's also given us an example photo of this tank where he is standing next to the manway. This is the actual site. What I'd like now is the example site of the manway that Wesley shows us, if we can show that. It's called the clean out manway. There it is. And you can see Wesley's hand. Now you can see the relative size of that opening and all those bolts that would have to be opened, unscrewed and screwed back on. And clearly it is at the bottom of the tank. So it's going to have to be that tank's going to have to be literally dry. But Wesley, just in terms of the time, because Chris Watts was seen leaving his house at 5:30 in the morning. And he had to have some kind of an alibi to be working by 7:30, 8:30, or 9:30 in the morning. So there were and it's 45 minutes to drive there. So he didn't have an inordinate amount of time at this site to dig a shallow grave for his wife and then do all this work at these two oil tanks. How much time does it take to pump the oil between the tanks? It can't be the same as that forensic vacuum.
No, and I think you could probably do that within an hour, more or less, depending on how full the tanks were.
The drive from the Watts residence at 2825 Saratoga Trail.
All right. So what do you have to say about all that? So what do you have
That
to say
picture
about
right there is that picture that you just saw where the tanks had that black behind them. That was after they opened those hatches up. That was the oil that come out of it.
Oh, like
that
so
was
right.
still there.
Okay, I see. Like right here. Okay, I got.
Yep, that's it right there. That's after they got the kids out.
Okay.
Because
so
if you look at earlier videos, there's nothing there. It's just that sand. But that's after.
Yeah, I would hope that much substance wasn't leaking out of those things beforehand. That would be a real problem, wouldn't it?
There's ways that you can build containment. That whole thing, if you see around the tanks, is called a containment. So if something were to happen with one of those tanks where it leaked, you would have 4-foot high walls all the way around there, and that would hold the leak until you bring the vacuum trucks in to suck it all out. But you could build like you see the one on the right, how the dark area has a right 90-degree turn.
Yeah.
That makes me think that they dug that out, because it's water goes like there's water doesn't have right degree turns. It's like a blob. So I think that's like dug out, and then they let whatever was in the tank go into that square, that rectangle black part. And then you see the one on the other side that barely is hardly anything. And that's probably the one that only had a foot of water in it.
That makes sense. Oh my gosh. So what else did Ashley's expert here say that was incorrect that you just listened to?
Oh, everything. Can't move water from one tank to another. Yeah, and you're not taking those things off. And those things have been on there for years, and you probably need air, like a impact gun that you use to take the lug nuts off your car, like the mechanics have. You would need something like that. You're not going to go with a hand wrench and undo those things that have been on there for 20 years.
Right, like Troy McCoy was talking about, like, oh, it's our crescent wrench. We always have to have our crescent wrench. You're not going to take your crescent wrench and get those lug nuts off there.
No, yeah, you're not doing anything like that. No.
Okay, so it's definitive. So according to what our oil field expert says here, it is definitive, and this is something we've talked about before, so we've known this on this channel. But for those of you who have this question, that Bella and Celeste had to have gone. And again, I'm just apologizing for everything that I'm going to say about those beautiful little girls in Shanan right now. But I mean, again, it's the purpose of talking about the truth, in such a straightforward way is to get to the truth. The reason all my bunnies are thumping around here is because I had to bring two of my bunnies in from what I call the bunny room. It's like an inside-outside room. It's not heated. It's been so cold here. And there's a new boy bunny in the area here. I didn't realize my son moved in. That's why they're thumping. They're all like, like they're being boys, testosterone-y. So I'm sorry about the thumping bunnies in the background. So Bella and Celeste went in through those thief hatches, and as Kevin described, and I've used this description before, I always say that I got it from you, is to understand how they got in those 8-inch openings when the narrowest shoulder width of the girls was 9.5 inches, was the way you think of putting a turtleneck on a hanger. You kind of got to, finagle one end in, then the other in, and you just keep angling things in until it's in. And I know it's fucking terrible, but Chris Watts is fucking terrible. But they did not go in through those side panels. It is definitive. Yeah.
Right. There's no other way. There is no other way.
No other way. And Angela Zapp, thank you very much for the $5 super sticker. I really appreciate it. And welcome. So glad you're here. And Castle had a question here. Castle had a few questions. I started one of them here. So let me just get to that. Now, is there anything else, like just in general, before we get into the questions that people have, that you wanted to say, Kevin?
A lot of the suspicious stuff that you see about Chris Watts and how they showed up on site, and he's parked by the wellhead facing where Shanan is, the truck.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, that's kind of weird. Why are you sitting there? Because the job is over, 30 feet over there.
Right.
And when you go to work at a place, you don't park 90 feet away from where you're working with your tools in your truck and go, wait, you go walk back and forth every time you need something. No, you park right next to your job. You park right next to the leak that was supposed to be there, where the separator are. You're not parking on the other side of the site. But he was parked there because he probably used the headlights to see his way down to the grass when he was putting Shanan out there. That's why the truck was facing that way.
That's right, because it makes no sense that he was parked there to do the job that he was supposed to be doing at Cervi 319 that morning. So he obviously parked there with the intention of taking care of other business. Yeah.
So I see that heaters. Yeah. What happens
Let me
is.
ask the question. Let me ask the question so everyone's on the same page. So Castle says, Kevin, explain to the audience how heater treaters were in line for those crude oil tanks, please. I work for Oxy, which is a corporation that bought Anadarko Occidental.
You ever use those keyboard spray cleaners, the compressed air?
Yes.
Did you ever feel how cold the can got when you sprayed it?
Yes.
Okay, so what happens is when you have gas under pressure and then you release that pressure, the energy of it being released is heat. So the heat goes away, and that's why everything becomes cold. And that's why you have a heater in line between the well and the area where the tanks go into, because as the pressure of the gaseous state releases, that it'll actually freeze the pipes. So you have to have a heater to reheat it, so the pipes don't freeze. I've actually seen one where a guy he screwed up and didn't get the separator working or the heater, and all the pipes in the whole site turned white with frost. And it was like in the middle of the summer. It was crazy. But this guy, he didn't have the heater on. It was sending all this compressed gas through these pipes, and it was freezing the outside of the pipes. So yeah, that's why the heaters are in between the separator and the tanks. It's to keep those pipes from freezing.
So I know this was a question of all of those that people have already submitted for you. So what was the temperature of the substance in those tanks, do you believe?
It would be ambient.
Ambient? Okay, so it's not really hot.
It's not hot at all.
Okay.
Nope. It's actually cold because of what I was talking about. That I just learned this the other day about why when you spray something like that, why the air is cold, and it's because when you have a compressed gas, even if it's air, and when it escapes into normal atmosphere, the heat dissipates from it and it becomes cold. It's hard to explain, but the energy of it expanding somehow takes the heat out of the gas, and that's why it's cold. So that's why the heaters are used to keep pipes from freezing, because they would freeze if you didn't have the heaters.
Okay. So, all right. So again, so now we have an answer to that. So the substance in there was not, sorry, I'm typing a comment. So it was not like super hot. Like a lot of people have asked us for some reason. I guess they must have picked that up somewhere else. So it is ambient temperature for all the reasons that you just explained. So, now just to put this issue to rest, still I see people commenting here because I know it's just so hard to think about. Carolina, how are you doing, by the way? It's great to see you. It says 8 inches. Chris Watts would have had to force those little girls through the tiny hole. So again, we talked about how, they would have had to go on in through the 8-inch hole through the thief hatch. And the way that would have been done would have been like angling them in, the way you would fit anything into something where it doesn't look like it would quite fit into the opening. And yes, there had to be some force. I think that was evidenced by particularly Bella's autopsy report, unfortunately. Just freaking horrific stuff.
Yeah, scrapes.
Yeah.
Yeah, scrapes on her. And I was just thinking, like, imagine you holding a kid. You've seen people hold a kid up with one arm. They just have the one arm hanging. What's the other arm do? It automatically sinks, goes down to the side. So right there you have it. You just have one of the hands in your hand, and they just kind of go down in, because it's pretty much you're taking the wideness out of the body, because one shoulder is up, one's down, one arm's up, one's down.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Castle's commented a few times, Troy wasn't involved, none of the coworkers were involved. I personally don't think Troy or any of those coworkers were involved, except for, if you consider NK a coworker, I think she was involved for sure. But as far as like the other guys that went out and serviced the oil fields, the operators or whatever their title was, I don't think any of them were involved by any means. I think none of them had anything to do with it, and were shocked and horrified ultimately at what happened. Tony says, I don't think Chris Watts put the girls in the tank. I believe it was NK and her friend, possibly. I don't know. I don't have any answers to that, but I definitely do not think that it was I definitely do not think it was any of his coworkers. Okay, so I'm going to go over to some of the other. Hey, R, it's been great to see you, my friend. R is one of our moderators. She's had some big life events going on recently. Can I talk about it yet? And we haven't seen her so much in a while, but it's been great to see you. Yeah, so let me go to some of the questions that people posted for you in the community page. So let me just bring that into the stream here. Thank you so much, Kevin. So many people in chat are saying thank you. This is just so super helpful and grateful. And I am the luckiest Watts creator in the world that I have this expert as one of our very own moderators. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, it's great. Nice to help. And, I watch true crime stuff all the time. And when you have somebody, that knows stuff about something and you can't get the information anywhere else. So
it's great.
I'm happy to help.
Totally. Awesome. Thank you so much. Let me see. I'm just going to try to optimize this for everybody. Let's see. Okay. So, DN, I don't know how to say this. D Norcal one. I'm so sorry. I think I butchered this name, but I believe it's been said that Chris Watts put them in the battery because their sweet little bodies would dissolve. Is this true? And how long would it take if that's true? Thank you, Kelly, for the opportunity to ask the questions, and RIP, Bella, Cece, and Nico, and Shanan.
Well, so then they took, I think it was Cece out. She was already, I think both of them, the skin was slipping off them already. Yeah. And that's 2 days.
Yeah.
So you can imagine that they're going to disintegrate. And those bones would probably get brittle. And now just think of this, that you're going to have water trucks come and they're going to be pulling water out of those tanks every once in a while. And you're going to get pieces of, they're going to be in that water. They're going to become that water. So, and then eventually you might have some bones left over when you open the tank up, but you could probably say, oh, those are bird bones. A bird got in there. And I mean, he could have got away with it. He could have.
Yeah.
But her friend, I don't know how he was planning to have, his plan to make an excuse for where they are, but those girls, they would have been, like I said, they kind of would have turned into the water eventually, and parts of them would be, sucked away. And then remember when they said about the water truck getting ready to leave, and they made sure there's nothing left in the water before he left?
Right.
Because they were looking for, pieces or anything, maybe a part of a shirt or something,
Yeah, evidence.
So yeah, I think totally
if they got it, but
yeah, I totally believe that they would eventually. How long it would take would be dependent on how caustic that well is. Some of them are really nice and clean, and some of them are really dirty with sand and sediment, and then you have other gases that come up with the oil and methane, which gets burned off in the heater, and all that. Some of that is because it's in the water, will automatically be in those tanks with that water. So there's all kinds of stuff in that. And yeah, I think they would have been, if they were allowed to go probably 3 months, I don't think that you would be able to recognize what you found left.
that makes sense. I mean, because you have that, noxious substance, first of all. And then, like you said, with the sand and stuff, you also have abrasives. And I mean, it really is sort of the I don't want to say perfect, but perfect elemental situation if you are trying to.
Yeah, if you have the time. But she didn't have the time. He never got the time. But you see that in 2 days it already started.
Atkinson, thank you.
Yeah, it's one big. I mean, she's lucky. She's lucky that he didn't come home and see her, because I think he would have done her. Why not? He's already did 3 other people, 4.
I mean,
and she's going to open her mouth.
If he was that committed to it at that point, I believe that she would have absolutely been in danger. Yeah.
Imagine if he was at the house, he comes back to the house, and then she comes over. Well, where's Shanan? Well, why don't you come in the house, and I'll show you where she is. And then you never see Nicole again. It could have been. She's lucky. She's really lucky.
She's lucky, and I think she's a hero. Yeah. And I just want to read this comment here. Offline says, I hope certain watch channels are here because this content would nullify their entire channel's premise. I agree with you, Offline. I hope they're here too, or at least they watch the replay. So, hey, Gary, how are you doing? All right, let me go on to another question here. So, let's see. Oh, this is from Cuffyu, who's in chat right now. Okay, so I think that this has already been asked. Cuffyu, do you feel like you got a good enough answer on this? My understanding is the oil in the tank was mixed with water and was not crude oil or black, as most of the media reported. Can you share a little bit about the subjects? Just to recap, what's the answer to that?
So you would have sludge at the bottom over time that would just like sediment over a long period of time. You were going to have like a cushion of sludge at the bottom of the tank, but most of it's going to be like sandy water that smells like maybe sewage or gasoline. Every different place smells a little different because you're digging into ancient plant life that's been deteriorating in the ground for hundreds of years, so all that stuff smells really bad when you bring it out in the open.
Sure. Yeah. Because it has a gas quality to it, right? So
yes.
Castle says Chris Watt's company GPS places them at Cervi 319. Castle, honey, we know that. You gotta watch the Obsession. You're gonna find that we agree with you and all the things that you're saying. I promise. Yes, absolutely. And all that information, all that data that is Geotab provided, or that his, just his phone and his health app provided. We have a wealth of information that incriminates Chris Watts. Bastard is exactly where he belongs. Ain't no doubt about that. So, Castle also says news was so off on information they should have called Kevin. I know. Ashley should have had you on as the expert. I'm going to tell my friend that next time you're going to have Kevin on, Ashley. That's what you're going to do.
Yes. Okay.
Oh my gosh. All right. Let me go to another question here. So NK was NK responsible for monitoring the sensors and sending out crews to fix things? In other words, do we know the leak was real and not an excuse? It sounds like fabricated by NK and Chris Watts together for Chris Watts to go out on the site. What do you have to say about that, knowing something about her?
The new guy took the picture of it, so it wasn't made up. The new guy found it. The new guy found it. He took a picture of it and like, oh, we can do this on Monday, which is another big no-no. But no. If the wrong guy found it, if that was supposed to be made up, because
that's right.
He did make the excuse to go out there, and this brings up something that if Chris Watts was smart, he would have done it on his own site and not somebody else's, because he has more control of his own sites. Because these operators, they have their own sites that they go to every day, and so like one operator will have 15, 20 sites. Okay. So they check them every day or every other day, and no other operator has to go on the other operator's site. So if he would have done that to his own site, he would have had more control of who comes in to his site. And he has kind of a say of who will be allowed on that site because it's his. So if there was a leak, he could fix it without telling anybody, and that way no one would ever have to go on Cervi 3 or his Cervi sites, because he has control of that site. No one else has to go out there, but he put it in somebody else's site, and everybody, guess what? Everybody showed up.
Right.
And
I don't think he was thinking things through extremely well, but let's say if he did, I wonder if maybe some of his thinking could have been, well, since it's not my site, it won't get traced back to me. But everybody knew that he did volunteer to go out there that morning. So the same morning his family went missing. So,
they're not, what's his face's kids, are they? They're his kids. So,
right.
Yeah, it's that. I thought about that later on. I was like, if he would have done that, he would have been closer to getting away with it, because he could have had more control over the site instead of having all these people show up and fix it. He could, if there was a leak on his site, he could just fix it without telling anybody, and that way no one else shows up. But they were all went to 319 to make sure that leak got fixed.
Okay.
That's why everybody was there.
That makes sense. Crime Lover 61 says, I never heard what the oil temperature was. Is it blistering hot? Thanks. So hopefully, Crime Lover, you're watching and you got the answer to that. McJay, I'll tell you when I do another case. We know how much you love Watts. Okay. Kyle Stone says, I have a question. Could Bella and Cece fit into the hatch at the top? We already answered that. And also, why did he put them in two different tanks? There has to be a reason. And thank you. That's a good question. Why do you think he put them in two different tanks?
I don't know. I don't know what the reason would be. I really don't know why he did that. I don't know if it was just he didn't hate his kids. Like he at the end he hated Shanan, so that's why he threw her in the dirt the way he did. And he said when she landed on her stomach, he just left her that way because he was so mad. And then, but the kids, I don't understand. I don't understand the two different. It doesn't make any sense. It didn't have to be.
Well, that actually goes to a question I have. So, and Serene Williams, so glad you're here. I'm going to get to your question there in chat. So I'm going to reference the discovery for my question because I always have props and references. So, all right. So there's this. Okay. All right. I have so much to say about this, but let me narrow it down to the scope of what we're talking about here. So, okay. Chris Watts. No. Okay. On the morning of August 13th, Chris took 3 photo pictures during the course of that morning with his phone. One was of the leak that he sent to Cody Roberts, and he also subsequently sent it to Nicole Kessinger as his proof that he was at Cervi 319. The other was of wildflowers in the field as he was leaving Cervi 319. And the other picture he took, it says here, it's 7:18 a.m. Now, this is in that 47-minute time frame. There was 47 minutes, guys, uninterrupted. I'm sorry, 43. When Chris Watts arrived at Cervi 319, until he made that first stage text to Shanan saying, if you take the girls anywhere, let me know where you're taking them. In that 43 minutes, he had no outgoing activity on his phone. It was very clear that he wasn't looking at his phone at all, at least through the discovery timeline. It indicates there were 43 uninterrupted minutes. That's another question I'm going to have. But first, the sub question is, but in the middle of that, at 7:18 a.m., this, McJay just texted me. Are you watching, McJay? It says, at 7:18, it says, Watts took a photograph of his laptop screen, presumably sitting in his truck, okay? Now, the note here from law enforcement, I do not believe this. It says, the metadata confirms Watts was at the Cervi coordinates. Okay, I believe that. The image is apparently only in thumbnail format, and enlarging it blurs out the writing on the laptop screen, meaning that they're saying that they cannot enlarge it to read what it was on his laptop he was taking a picture of, which is total bullshit. But what do you think he was taking a picture of? I always wondered if it was something that told him the levels of oil in the tanks. Is there something like that?
There's the valve I told you about that connects the two tanks that would equalize them both. So, like the one has 7 feet in it and the other has 2. If you open that valve in time, they would both have 4 feet because the weight of the one would force the water into the other one until they were equal. But
so as far as there being because we know he took a picture of his laptop screen, would there have been something that he would have gotten, like an analytical, like a data point, when he looked at whatever software, whatever they use on their computer, that would tell him the levels of oil in the tanks? Or can you think of anything?
Oh, that no. So those old tanks, you go up and you take a basically, when you measure clothes, you have that flexible measuring tape that you wrap around. So you have something like that. It's on the reel, and you drop that down into the tank from the hatch, from the thief hatch. You drop that down there, and then you can tell how much water is in it from when it gets wet. Mm-hmm. That's the old-fashioned way of doing it, and a lot of them are still that way.
Okay.
So no, they wouldn't. That site there wouldn't have any electronic stuff at all.
So it was just a very manual thing. It wasn't that sophisticated.
No, not that one. Nope.
Okay. So and then
I don't know what it would have been on a screen. I don't know what took pictures of. He's all over the place with looking at rocks and volcanoes and stuff. Who knows?
I know. Who knows? And then
Battery lyrics.
my big question, but don't answer this yet, because we're going to wait till the end to bring kind of some pieces of information together. I want to know, because my opinion is, and this is a controversial opinion. A lot of people here don't agree with me. My opinion is Chris Watts could have done on his. Now, I do think MK is involved, but I don't know if she's involved in Cervi. I just don't know. Do I want to know? Yes. Am I going to find out someday? Obviously, I dedicate enough time to this. Obviously, it's a mission of mine. But I want to know if you agree with me that Chris Watts had enough time in those 43 uninterrupted minutes to do everything that was done at Cervi 319 by himself. But don't answer that just yet. We're going to come back to that. So that's my next question. All right. So Angel USA says, I often wondered if the reason Chris's, oops, I got to switch it back here. And thank you guys for the questions. Thank you to those of you coming in. Everybody, please take a moment to hit like. I'd really appreciate it. Get the notifications out. Everyone say thank you to Kevin. It's so great that he's here. He is our moderator and my friend, but also an oil field expert who has over 20 years experience in the exact same field of work Chris Watts was in, working in those exact same batteries, driving the same truck, having familiarity with Geotab and all of that stuff. So he has all the answers. Yeah, I'm going to say all the answers, all the questions. I wondered if the reason Chris's phone's steps might be off is because he couldn't take it near the oil tanks. We've talked about this before, but not everyone knows the answer. Is it dangerous to have cell phones near the oil tank battery? Take it away, Kevin.
Can be. Not generally. They don't want you to have your phone out because they don't want pictures taken of their sites. First of all, that was the big thing. If they catch you with a cell phone out and they think you're taking pictures, they'll throw you right off the site because they just don't like. It's like they're all the same. So I don't know what the problem is, but
now
I think he's just too busy.
Discussed before that there is a danger of combustibility if you were to bring a cell phone near like the opening of a thief hatch.
Well, it's not the smartest thing to do, but you could do it and probably get away with it. It'd probably be in his pocket anyway, But but like if you turned the flashlight on and stuck it in the hatch to look down inside there, you're like making it more dangerous. You get what I'm saying? It's like, why not just get a lighter out now or you want to,
Right. So that would be because so this is because there are, I'm sure you've been here before and we've talked about this. I just put a video out on it recently. It was Chris Watts health app data where there are no steps clocked on Chris Watts' phone during that time he's at Cervi 319. And my reason that I've always put forth is because he didn't have his phone on his person. He left it in his truck. And I thought that made a lot of sense. Well, because he was doing other things, but also because I thought it must be someone else I talked to that said that this would have been the case. Because I thought it was you and I that talked about this, that it would have been practice to, not bring your cell phone with you up to, like if you went up to the top of a tank, like to the thief hatch area, because it was like a safety thing. Like it could have.
I think that he didn't want to be bothered. He knew he was going to be busy. And leave the phone in the truck. Yep.
Yeah.
Plus you have a danger of dropping it. You're breaking it. If you take it out, it's in your truck. Your phone is hooked up to the Bluetooth in your truck, so you can talk.
Oh, right.
You don't have to touch your phone. Yeah, so you would leave it in there for that reason too, or you're disconnecting it and reconnecting it and all that stuff. It takes time. It's annoying.
That makes sense. And he probably didn't want to do anything that was going to, possibly limit his time any more than it already was.
Yeah, imagine if he dropped his cell phone out there and lost it, and then it's just something else that he would have,
Yeah, right. Oh God.
Or like the rake, he left the rake out there, and then it's like, good job, bud. Yeah,
I know, and like
the sheet. That's a dead giveaway.
The sheet.
What's a big white sheet going out in the sand?
Bedroom. I know the sheet that links back to his marital bed.
Yeah, really. It's not the smartest thing.
Brittany Miller says, if Nicole Atkinson did not alert the police, would he have gotten away with it? We kind of just talked about that. There would have been no bodies, correct? We sort of covered that.
Yeah, but Shanan, we don't know what, the little grave that he made for her wouldn't have lasted that long because you got animals that would come and, You know, they would want to eat it. You sort of the stories where someone gets dies in a park, and then the animals come and take various parts of the. They only find some certain parts because the animals come and take,
That's right.
have their way with the bodies and the meat and all that stuff. But the kids, the kids could have been erased.
And the reason
But
we say
Shanan,
this
I don't know
is because Shanan was disgracefully discarded and placed
Yes.
just under 3 to 8 inches of earth, barely underground.
Not even dirt, like sand.
Sand,
So
right.
that, even wind would have blown some of that away. And you see how flat those plains are. I'm sure there was a lot of wind. Oh, you just remember that one video taken of a tornadoes,
Right.
She wouldn't have stayed in that. She wouldn't have stayed covered up for long, especially when there's a sheet out there.
Yeah.
I mean, drawing attention to, why is there a bed sheet out in the middle of this,
I know.
field?
It's been like, it may as well have been like a big, like, neon arrow.
Yeah, really.
Wow.
I don't know. Do you think like the wind blew it and he didn't lost it in the dark and was like, oh, I just gotta live with that sheet being missing now? I mean, how did it get where it was? I doubt that he took it and ran out there and dropped it. I think the wind probably got it, and when he was doing something, and
I feel like he believed that he buried it with Shanan.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
I just think he was just like really out of his senses at this time. Yeah. That's
to put your kids that you seem to love so much in those tanks. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Listen, no one's ever thought about doing anything like that. Never.
I think that is really just part of the fundamental fascination with this case. It is fucking out of your mind crazy. Like, nobody.
Yeah, but all the videos of him being everybody says he's such a great dad and great husband and all that, and then this is what happens. It's like, where'd this come from? Everybody gets it with shit in. It's like, oh, okay, we get why how you felt about her because of how she treated you and stuff, but the kids,
right?
I don't get it unless someone else didn't want to have kids. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But so maybe that was the deal. Like, I never thought that that certain someone wanted to get pregnant ever. I don't think that certain someone ever wanted to have kids ever.
Well,
you see how she talks about kids.
Well, one of the things that he tells law enforcement, and that she said to him, "I want to give you your first son." He said, he was asked, does she want to have kids? And he said, well, she never knew if she wanted to have kids, but she did tell me that she wants to give me my first son.
She said a lot of things.
She did say a lot of things.
But she sent a lot of pictures, and that's to keep him hooked too. But he's a family guy. So how do you keep a family guy? You get a family. Right. You make a family.
Exactly.
So, that's just
girl. She
Candy.
She shifted herself into whatever she thought he wanted. What a fucking prize, Nicole. Seriously, look at him.
Well, he was shredded, so
yeah.
Yeah, I guess that was probably that's all I got from that relationship is their physical attractiveness to each other. Besides that, I don't think there was very much of anything.
I don't think there was either. I don't think so. All right, let me go back to these questions here. So, and I know some of you texted me questions. I'll get to that too. Oh, Nancy Ann, are you still here? Nancy says, oh, let's debunk the explosion theory once and for all. Okay. So Nancy and I do not love the explosion theory. Sorry, all you explosion theorists, but I just think it's the silliest thing. The explosion theory. You're familiar with the explosion theory?
Well, I don't know what they expect to explode, but here's the simple answer is that these sites are built to not explode because it's dangerous, flammable stuff that's come up out of the ground. That being said, with the kind of water and sediment that's in those tanks, if you were to take maybe a 2x4, wrap a rag around it and some gasoline, light it, and throw that in, it'd catch on fire, I'm sure,
Sure.
but then then it would run out of air because the tank is, unless you leave the hatch open, but it wouldn't last that long. And what are you blowing up? I mean,
well,
everything
I think
is
part of the explosion theory is that, okay, here's like my most common understanding of it, that the friend that Nicole Kessinger had as her house guest, she definitely was there that Friday. We just heard her say it in the interview last night. That Danielle, she talks about a friend coming in, and then she says Danielle came in on Friday night. She was there at least Friday of that weekend before the murders being on the Monday morning. Danielle Haley looks remarkably like Shanan. I'll see if I can get a picture of her. And people, believe, I think this is the most common explosion theory. Okay, let me try to get this insanity right. Okay, Danielle Haley was going to drive Shanann's Lexus to Cervi 319 because she looked like Shanan. So if she were caught on camera anywhere, people would believe it was Shanan. And the idea would be that she was so mad at Chris for whatever reason, and so cray, just out of her mind in general, she brought the kids with her, and it was either, how did they even end up exploding down there? But somehow the Lexus exploded. And that's
I know they talk about that gas can, but that's not really going to do that much of anything. A 5-gallon gas can,
Yeah.
So, and everything there is metal or dirt. So metal don't really burn, unless you pour gasoline or diesel on it and then light it. But then it's just it's metal.
Right.
Nothing's gonna happen to it. But like I said, you could probably catch the stuff inside, but it's not an explosion. I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay. So the
fire is the only thing you're gonna get.
In general, the idea of creating an explosion there for whatever reason is just kind of like, no.
Yeah, they're built not to explode. So trying to get something to do that's built not to do it is,
Right. Okay. Perfect. All right.
Great. If you took a car and drove into the wellhead, you're gonna probably fly through the windshield. You're not moving that wellhead. I mean, you knock that wellhead off, you're gonna have a big problem. Yeah, but you're not gonna be able to. That's not gonna happen. I mean, you could take that Lexus and drive it into anything there, and that Lexus is gonna lose. That stuff is built. Yeah.
Right. Yes. So, okay. So whatever version of the explosion theory, we're just saying it's probably not. It's probably a reach. So Mike,
it doesn't have to be so complicated,
Yeah, exactly. Let's stick to Occam's razor at least a little bit here.
They didn't do a good job getting Cover and Watts up going from the truck into the house back and forth that many times, and they were talking about having Shanan, a lookalike like Shanan, driving a Lexus around. Well, they can't even do Chris Watts walking out to the truck. So I mean, they can't do the easy stuff right, and you want them to do all this hard stuff, and don't see it.
That's exactly how I feel about all of those, various versions of the explosion theory, and they get even more complicated than that. Like the reason that Nicole Kessinger looked up Ronnie Watts after their date at the Lazy Dog was, having to do with something like, a vengeance against Anandarko because of all their environmental infractions, because Nicole Kessinger and Jim were geologists and they were going to frame Chris. It just gets it gets too much for me. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, y'all. I like the facts. Y'all know this.
So you want to bite the hand that feeds you and turn your own company that pays you in and make them pay for something. They're the one feeding you. So that's like the people who pay you, you're gonna try and bend over because you're mad because they did something environmentally. Then you lose your job, and guess what? You're not gonna get a job anywhere like it because everybody will know you did.
Dream job.
Yeah. Oh yeah, her dream job. Changing batteries.
Right. Changing batteries. All right. Says Kelly, I know you think my theory is silly, but I had to say it just because I think it's plausible. I was certainly not referring to you when I was just saying I think the explosion theory is silly. I think that you want to come up, or if you want to come up just to explain to everybody what the explosion theory as you see it to be is, you're welcome to do that. So I'm going to put the link just for RFR wants to come up, because I don't think I'm going to open up panel tonight.
I know one of them had to do with the house blowing up, but that was because a valve was left open that wasn't supposed to be, and the gas traveled under the ground and into people's cellars, and then it kind of
one of
up,
the
and that's
explosions
where they're getting the
happened.
explosions in. Because they remember they were sending pictures around about the explosion.
Yes.
That's where they're getting that whole explosion thing. But you're talking about oil and
Right.
natural gas are two completely different things.
Two completely
So-
different things. Yeah. Okay. That's, you know what, that makes, I didn't even think of it like that. Yeah, they're two completely different things. Yeah, where they
were sending pictures about what was going on. I think that was Colorado too, right? Where the house exploded.
Yeah.
A couple houses.
Yeah.
Some place, some site, someone left a valve open and the gas leaked out under the ground, traveled to their basement and filled up the basement, and eventually a spark happened and the house goes up. That was negligence. That was that's a terrible thing that happened, but it's just as simple as someone not turning a valve all the way. That's as simple as that. That's how dangerous it is. But then again, you're talking about natural gas compared to, which is, how explosive houses blow up if there's a leak. Oil, don't do that. Oil's oil.
Right. That's why, your gas company will always say, if you think you smell gas, get the fuck out and then call 911,
Yeah, like go turn lights on. Yeah. Even a light bulb.
Yeah.
Or the switch, the spark that's behind the switch when you flip the light switch. That could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's right. It's two different things. So I think people are thinking, that's such a good point, Kevin, because I think people are thinking about, like the explosions that, Anadarko was liable for that happened as a result of the gas lines coming into houses, and the possible explosion that could happen in Cervi 319 is being the same combustible substance, but it's totally different. Like
it's not.
I never thought of it like that before, though. That's why we like experts.
Oil would burn itself, and natural gas is the vapor that burns. So like gasoline, the vapor that comes off of the gasoline is what explodes. And diesel, you can throw a match out in a puddle of diesel and nothing will happen. Because the vapor coming off the diesel fuel is not explosive like gasoline. So that's the difference between oil and gas.
Okay.
One's explosive and one isn't.
Okay. Wow. That's just like such a simple answer. I think if we all had that understanding a long time ago, it would have been a different conversation. And I put the link for you in chat. If you want to come up, sweetie, you're welcome to come up. So it's there for you. I'm going to go to some questions here. And Susie Q, thank you so much for the super sticker. I appreciate it. Glad you're here tonight. Serena Williams says, do sites like this usually have surveillance cameras present? Why would a site like Cervi not have cameras present? This is a good question, I think.
This was before you even had portable cameras. So this was probably made in the 70s, this site. And they just didn't, who's going to be out there what are you going to do? What are you going to do on one of those sites? You're not going to do anything. Look at it.
I think
you can't do anything.
It's an industry regulation in Colorado, though, that those sites are supposed to have cameras.
Obviously,
Maybe I'm wrong.
I'll tell you, 5% of the sites I've been on have cameras.
Okay.
And it's just a new thing. And most of them have to do with it being in the forest, because the state game commission likes to keep an eye on who's going in and out. So that's why there's cameras. But like I said, maybe 5-10% of the sites I've been on only have cameras. The rest of them just nothing at all. You have the tanks, you have the wellhead, the separator, nothing else.
Okay, that's interesting, because there's been a lot of conversation about this particular site not having any security cameras and the implications on the case and Anadarko.
Probably none of those service sites have cameras, probably.
Okay.
Unless they got nervous about it and put some up afterwards, you don't know. But I'm sure they didn't before. They don't do something until something happens, You don't get a warning label on something until someone does something stupid. That's why you have, if coffee's hot in this coffee cup, well, someone burnt themselves. That's why they have to have a warning on it. So
someone
we're not putting
someone
cameras up unless we have to.
got millions of dollars from McDonald's. Like, great, good for them for
Yeah.
not paying attention to where they're putting their coffee while they're driving.
That person got caught by the fraud investigators out playing around with motorcycles and stuff. And they said, well, you're not supposed to be able to use your hands. You burnt your hands too bad. They got all that money back.
Oh, really?
I don't know if they went to jail, but
that's great.
That McDonald's person that spilled the coffee. Yeah. They were on her for months. I think it was a woman.
Oh, wow.
Pretty sure they caught her like she was carrying heavy grocery bags in her hands. If your hands are burnt and you can't use them, you're not carrying heavy grocery bags.
No.
That's not happening.
No.
So sometimes good things do happen,
Yeah, that's good. I never knew that. That's great. That's a good story. Jolene Muniz says, hi, is there any chance of combustion during the extraction of the children? The extraction seems very dangerous. So we kind of talked about this, but what's the answer to clarify that?
That would be the most dangerous part is when you're opening up, because a lot of the gas that's dangerous is heavier than air. That would be at the bottom of the tank. So that's why they have to go in wearing the apparatus, the breathing apparatus. And that's because, so they have good air to breathe while they're in there. And then I'm sure probably just one went in because then one has a rope tied around him and he's watching the guy going in. And then there's a guy watching the guy watching the guy. So if something happens to any one of them, there's people, there to get them out. Or I was telling the story to you guys before about the corn silo that these Amish people went in. Right. And the dad goes in and he don't come out. And they're like, well, I better go and see if something's happened. And the son goes in and he don't come out. And then the cousin comes in and they all die. They all died in there because they went in there and they breathed some gas they didn't know was in there. And they just kept going in. And that's what the first thing you learn is you get away. You don't keep going into it. If you see someone fall down, that's too bad for them. Like if you're on a site and something bad happens with the poison gas that comes out somehow, if you see someone fall, you don't go get them. They're done. They're already dead.
Well, it's like
so you have to get yourself out. Yeah, you're not saving them. You're not safe. You're going to kill yourself doing it, because what happens is, especially the hydrochloric sulfide or whatever, H2S gas. What happens is you smell it like once, and it smells like, oh, that stinks like rotten eggs, right? And then you don't smell it anymore. Well, it's because it killed your senses. You're still breathing it, and then you die because you thought, oh, that was just a bad smell there for a minute. But the problem is that gas killed the nerves in your nose and your throat, and you're still breathing it but not knowing it. And they say if you see someone fall down, like something happened, you go the other way, because you're not saving them. They're dead. There's no saving them.
Okay.
People like that. You can't, like, where you're gonna go in there and pull them out, and you're not gonna have like oxygen to push into their lungs right away. Nothing can, nothing good could happen. So yeah, the gas would settle at the bottom of the tank. They would have to, vent it. They would have the hatch open at the top, trying to get as much air. Firefighters they call positive ventilating a house when they cut holes in the roof of the house to move the air through it. And they would do stuff like that. So they would try and push fresh air into the tank before going in there, because those people standing around, not everyone's going to have, like the FBI guys and whoever else is around, they're not going to have all that specialty gear on, so they have to be safe too. So they're either going to stay far away, but you don't know what you have to have, like certain tests come in, find out what kind of air is in there. But if you just have the whole thing where you're having the air pack, like a fireman or a scuba, like scuba diver has the positive air breathing into their mouth constantly, then they're fine.
Okay.
But like I said, you would have one guy go in and he would have a rope tied around him, and then you have a guy watching him, holding onto that rope, and then a guy watching him. And if something, they all are a team that work together all the time, and they practice all the time. It's a confined space entry team. And so they all know each other, and how, you know, they know each other from working with each other every day, and they know, you know, if there's something wrong, they know to get the other one out right away. They, you know, but that would be the most dangerous part, and not so much explosive wise, but poison gas wise.
Okay.
Because like that would all settle at the bottom of the tank, and when you open that hatch up, then it would spill out, and those people are going to be right there. But it would dissipate. You know, it would just be the initial of opening, taking off the hatch, and it coming out. Eventually,
put the life and health of so many people in danger. That fucker.
Yeah, really. I mean,
he just did. So
yeah,
Julia
these teams are. There's not many people that do that that confined space rescue stuff. That's a very highly specialized thing.
Okay.
And they usually have like 4 or 5 people a state. That's all do it. And then if something happens, they get on a plane, they fly there. You know, like those special FBI people that
I didn't
when something
realize
bad happens.
Highly specialized. Yeah, that's
yeah. Confined space is a big deal because of first of all, we got a dog. Anyway, sorry about that. What was I saying? You're going into a place and you're wearing all this equipment. So the oil and the gunk that's clinging onto the sides of the tank and on the ground that you're crawling in on, is it touching your skin? Because of what happened to the girls? The skin started coming out, right? Because it's caustic. Right. So you would have all that stuff on, and then you would have to have the air pack on. And if you go in there, the hatch isn't that big when you get all that stuff crawling on your hands and knees. You got an air tank on your back. What if something happens and you can't turn around and get back out? That's why you have all these, you know, that's how dangerous it is. I mean, he could get in there and not be able to turn around and get out because it's a small area to get in and out of. And there's all kinds of permits and stuff that you have to do. I'm sure that they probably had some kind of emergency, you know, thing where they just let them go in and do it without having all these people sign off on it. But sorry.
Well, that's okay. There, but it's interesting. Julia Turner says, I believe he pre-dug Shanann's grave. That takes time, and the girls were not premeditated. So the tanks were a decision made because of time. Now, a lot of people in comments have, you know, has said things about the grave possibly being pre-dug, and maybe it was, and talking about the consistency of the earth. So I just want to replay. We watched this in a live stream recently, but this is from True Psych Ward when Dr. B and her sister actually went out there. This is the real Cervi 319 site before it was raised. So let's just take a look at that so we can get an idea of that consistency of the earth out there. Oh, look, in your comments up there.
The tanks. And you can see right here, we come up to the gates, and this is where it really, really became emotional for all of us.
And RIC, I'll get you in a minute. I just saw you.
That looks like it's actually it.
It is. So that right there is Cervi 319.
Yeah, that's the first video I ever saw of someone actually finding it.
At the consistency of the ground, and this is sped up a little bit. So
wait,
I'm not.
So this is what the ground is like there. So that right there is Cervi 319.
And here,
Yeah, it's
I
the
was
first time I've ever
actually
seen
looking
anybody
at
actually find it.
the ground, and this is sped up a little bit, so I'm not.
Kevin, every time we get to where she's playing in the dirt, you say something. Just 1 second.
Oh.
but you can because you're the guest. But here, let me just go back a little bit there.
Oh, you want? Let's. I just.
Wait, just
I
one
was just
second.
saying that. This, okay.
So that right there is Cervi 319.
And here, I was actually looking at the consistency of the ground, and this is sped up a little bit, so I'm not actually moving that fast. But you can see that the entire ground is covered by sand, very soft sand at that. So it is, in my opinion, that it would not be difficult for Chris to dig a grave, a shallow grave at that, on his own, especially having tools that he had, like the shovel and everything else. So
I'm with you.
I was really, really surprised with that.
Okay, so again, that was from a live stream. So I was talking. Oh, so that was from a live stream recently. That was me talking in the live stream. So I think that was what was confusing. So what were you gonna say, Kevin?
It's just the first time I've seen actually somebody find it. Because Alexis asked the question. Yes, they are tore down now. It's flat.
Yes.
But if you can find it on Google satellite images, you can see the outline of the fence around it.
Yes.
That's how I found it.
Yeah. You gave that to us before. So all right. So
But it is flat.
But Ara's up here now. So hey, Ara, how are you doing?
Hey, thanks for letting me up. I don't want to stay up here too long.
Sure. So go ahead and say. I think Ara was going to tell more about what with the explosion theory. So go.
No.
Or whatever you want to say. Okay, go ahead.
No, I wasn't actually. I didn't want to explain it because I know it's not a theory that is like on your channel is backed up. Like it's not something that you will back up, you know. But I was saying it in the chat, and I'm one of your mods, and I just wanted to tell you that I'm not trying to validify that theory. I was just. You know,
it's okay. I mean, listen, if there was factual information that
I know.
I felt backed it up, like I think I'm gathering from what I'm reading, like I really respect Serena Williams' opinion always. She's super smart and insightful, knows this case really well. I think that she believes that is a theory. Like I'm not opposed to it. I just at this time do not believe it.
No, yeah, and I just wanted to tell you I wasn't trying to take over the chat by bringing that up. But you know how sometimes I forget I'm a mod and I'll just like talk, you know?
It's okay. You're fine. You can have your own opinion. It's all good.
I just put it up. I just didn't want to go away from your topic tonight. So I just wanted to say sorry about that. But I don't think it's something that Kelly like believes in. And that's cool. And thank you for like letting me say it in your chat. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh,
but no,
it's all good. You can be a moderator and have your own opinion. Plenty y'all do.
No, but yeah, I'm going to drop down because Kevin is like saying a lot of really cool stuff. Yes. So you guys have a good night. I'll be in the chat.
Okay, sweetheart. All right. Awesome. All right. Thanks for coming up. So let's see. So, let's see. Chris says, what gets me now that I have followed this case since day one is Chris knew his coworkers were going to be there, and the time he left his house being daylight and the time he got there, he hid them before the coworkers got there is what I think you're probably following up with. It looks like this had to be continued. But I'm not sure where. Okay, I think there was some. Oh, hey, Justice A3Z, how are you doing?
Yeah, he was calling around fishing for where that one guy was. Remember, he was expected to show up, and he was calling him, and he called him until he answered. He was fishing to find out where he was. He knew he was on his way.
He definitely was. Yeah, he was definitely. I think just before he got there, he was freaking out because he didn't know where he was. Serena Williams says, I think to dismiss any theory is short-sighted. And listen, well, I guess what I did say, I did just kind of dismiss the explosion theory. I have had so many different people, some really smart people whose opinions I really respect, who are so well-versed in research in this case, try to, put together an explosion theory and sort of like sell it to me, for lack of a better term. I just, even with all of that, I just, at this point, I don't dismiss it as a possibility, because with this case, let's be real, anything is possible. And I get that. I personally have not been able to subscribe to it. So that's just where I'm at, and I will stand by that. So let's see. Susie Q says, is it possible that Chris Watts intended that the bodies would be going into the tanks, but because it was an unfamiliar site, the tanks were different from what he expected? Oh, and then she asked a follow-up question. Do they have different tanks with like different style, like thief hatches or openings at the top or whatever? Are they literally all carbon copies of one another? I think is what she's going at.
They're all the same.
They're all the same.
The pictures that I sent you are from central Pennsylvania, and they're the exact same thing that you see there, just painted a different color. Like
Yeah.
there, the stuff is brown because of the ground, and here they're dark green because of it's like forest and grassy
right.
here. So they're made to blend in as much as they can. I mean, they don't stand out like a sore thumb, but they're all the same. They're all 20 foot high. They all have the same patch in the back. They all have see, like that right there.
So these
That's
are the pictures Kevin sent me. Okay, some of them.
That one there is a water tank specifically for fresh water. So they have that built into the panel so they can fast load trucks.
Okay.
But that's the same exact tank.
Okay.
So it's just used for something else. That's why those valves are on the back of that panel there. Otherwise, it'd be flat. Yep.
Oh, okay.
I
see. Okay, you're saying the same thing. I gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
Yep, those right there. Yeah.
And then
those would normally not be there on a. What's that?
I said, and then there's Kevin.
Oh, yeah. More snow there now than right now.
Oh God, we have so much snow up here right now. It's like insane. It's like feels like it's never. This winter has been a little bit hellish for me. Do not like it. Okay, so now people haven't been quite asking on these questions yet because I don't know if they understand that this is also your area of expertise, which of course it is. But I want to talk about Chris Watts' work truck. So tell us about your experience with the kind of truck that Chris Watts drove as his fleet truck.
Well, I have let's see, 6 or 7 of them. Every 2 years, get a new one. Pretty much, that's how it works. But some of the stuff with the truck, people say about sensors being tripped off about the weight. That don't exist. The only thing
what is the Geotab sensors? What exactly does that measure?
The what sensor? The what part?
Like the whatever sensors are in there.
So the seatbelt. You know when you get into the passenger seat and the light comes on saying there's a person in the passenger seat, haven't put their seatbelt on, or dings. That's the only sensor you have for weight. It's for the seatbelt light. That's all it is. It's not measuring how much weight's in the truck or anything like that. So, and that would constantly change all the time, especially with what I did because I was building these sites. So I would have it would empty in the end of the day, and in the morning it would be full of stuff. So, yeah, inside and out. I mean, I'd have stuff packed all the way up to the ceiling. I had 55-gallon drums in the back seat. And people say that she can't fit in there. You could fit 4 of her in there.
Okay, so that was going to be my next question. So hold on, let me bring this into the stream here. So, we've been talking a lot like recently about, how did this all go down? Specifically, something that's been discussed on the channel a lot recently is the theory that Shanan was brought out the back, which for a while I totally just did not buy into. Y'all have started to convince me a little. There could be something to that. But when I was talking to Kevin about this, and he was saying that, because I always thought, wait a minute, because one of the arguments that gets me is that Shanan could not have possibly fit in the back on that floorboard in the cab section of the truck under Bella and Celeste when they were sitting in that like fold down seat in the back. And I have never owned one of these trucks, but I've seen them before. I have actually checked. A friend of mine, uses one for work way back when I started looking into this case. Just checked it out. If I knew it was going to be such a controversy, I would have taken measurements and stuff. to my eyes, I felt like, oh yeah, Shanan definitely could have fit there in the floorboard in the back seat. But there are people that swear up and down, I own that truck, and there's no way you could fit a person in the floorboard of that back seat. But what say you, Kevin?
Well, it's called a crew cab for a reason. So, a lot of oil field guys, they're big guys. You're talking
Right.
300-pound guys, some of them. You got to carry them around sometimes. They fit back there. So Shanann's going to fit back there. If 300-pound guys can fit back there, she's fitting back there.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's
So,
the
yeah,
answer.
that's what I thought.
I held, I'd have a full truck sometime with people, 4 guys in it. One in the passenger seat and 3 in the back. It was cramped,
Okay.
but they fit.
Yeah. So, I don't know, guys. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. And then there is always, the issue of, when we see that neat security camera footage of, Chris Watts making those trips back and forth to the truck, do we see any time where he could have brought Shanan out and put her in the truck? Do you think that Shanan was taking Cervi 319 in the truck, or do you think she went out the back?
I told you I don't know about my opinions. I don't think really matter, but I don't know how he did it. If he did do
Right.
it, he did it fast. Maybe if he did do it, it was probably because of adrenaline and everything else happening. But it sure doesn't look like he picks. What does she weigh? About 180, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, probably
But he
about,
just
I'd
goes
say,
back and forth, like nothing. Like he's not carrying, not dragging anything.
yeah.
And he does go over on the passenger side. There's people that say he doesn't go, you would have to go over and pull her through the passenger side a little bit. Well, he does. He does go over on the right-hand side. And he opens the passenger door like 2 or 3 times. So he could have been pulling her in those times.
That's aside from which we see him playing around with the gas tank.
Yep. And then you see if you pay attention between the bush or wherever that bushy tree is, you can see the light on his mirror come on, and that comes on when you open the door. So he's opening the passenger's door and he's doing something. He does it 2 or 3 times. You could check the light on the mirror on the door lights up, and then along with that would be the light that shines into the bed.
Right.
Because of the courtesy light. So when you open the doors, some lights light up on the outside so you can see around your truck. So you have some light around you, and that's a courtesy thing. So you see that light come on 2 or 3 times when he's opening that door, and he does it, I don't know, a couple minutes apart each time.
Yeah.
So he's going on that side and doing something there. He's doing something. You can't see what he's doing. And maybe that's what he was doing. Maybe he was pulling her at that point. We can't tell. We can't see it.
Yeah.
But what would have happened is he would have the seat up. That back seat.
We don't know.
What's that?
Oh, go ahead. Oh, wait. Here's a perfect look.
Yeah.
Look at. Wait a minute. Hold it.
So you have those doors.
Visual of the truck here. Hold it.
Right there, the seat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right there. Okay.
That seat, the seat that your butt sits on, that would flip up. So you have that. You can't tell there.
Right.
But you would have a big empty space, and then you would put her on the floor there, and then put the seat back down, and then the kids would sit on the seats.
That's right.
So that seat goes up and down, so you can lift that seat up, and then she would be under that seat. That's why she's not just going to be in that little area. She has that whole from the back of the front seats to the underneath that rear seat. She could fit under there.
Right. Yeah.
It's just that little area on the left.
She's not that big. I think she weighed like 140 pounds or something normally, and then she was pregnant, so more.
Oh, okay.
Pounds more. She wasn't that big. I mean, I know she looks like, before she did all of her Thrive diets and stuff, it looks like she's like a little like curvier on the bottom, like a little bigger booty, bigger thighs, but she still has a petite build. So there's that, like those curves on a petite person. You know what I mean? We all know those people. Maybe you are one of those persons, not you, Kevin, but so she isn't that big, so, and then, and so this goes with what Serena says here. So Serena says, I don't believe that Chris Watts would have risked driving to the site with a body and 2 little kids in the car, not in car seats, dangling their feet on their mom. Well, he was willing to risk a lot that morning, because I wouldn't think, along those lines, that, that he would leave her buried in a grave that was with only 3 to 8 inches of dusty dirt above her. I mean, I think that's a bigger risk than taking that drive to Cervi 319, really. At any point, that dusty dirt could just blow off her and expose Shanan Watt's body. Oh my God, she's been missing. Or the body of a female that was pregnant and, matches, the same size, and then obviously dental records of Shanan Watt. So I don't think that he was really like doing a risk assessment that morning, personally. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but that's just my thought on that. Like, I don't think he was thinking about, oh, this is a big risk. I mean,
I can't believe there hasn't been any footage of highway cameras released of him, because there's all these license plate readers and stuff, and you see all these true crime shows about them tracking people through the Kohlberger. They had Kohlberger going down the highway. They knew where he was the entire time.
Well, they didn't want to investigate it. And in that video that we just watched, and that I played during that live stream with True Psych Ward and Dr. B, when they went to, she was on that trip. She was meeting Vanessa from Unmasked, and they were going to Weld County District Attorney's Office to get all of this information that they paid for above and beyond what was in the discovery. They thought it was going to be X, but it turned out being Z, and what they asked specifically about that, those cameras, like on the road at stoplights, like just like exactly what you're saying. And the answer was from Amanda Purcell, who is Rourke's bitch, the keeper of all of the records and evidence. She said, well, those belong to the Colorado Department of Highways. And then the comment from her, and the obvious thing you would think is, so what? Freaking get them. I'm sure you have before, but they acted like it was an impossible feat. But that all goes along with the idea here, which is central to why I keep talking about this. They didn't want to investigate this. They didn't want to know the answers. And that's
maybe there was another car following him.
Right.
Maybe there was a Toyota right along with him. Who knows?
Maybe there was. Maybe it had Danielle Haley and leave fucking Jim alone in it.
And they're going to blow up the whole thing. But someone asked me to say this, because apparently this is a theory too, is that Nicole would have got messages that someone opened the hatches. There's nothing on those hatches to send messages to anybody. It's just a metal hatch. There's nothing telling anybody anything from them sites. That's why you have to go to the site every day and look at it yourself. Chris Watt's job was to go to every site that was his, look at the gauges, look around the site, see if there's anything that's not there or anything that's there that shouldn't be there, like the leak or garbage, or if a gauge that's normally reading like 400 is 300. If it's something like that happens, then you have a leak, because it's not the same pressure it was a day. That's why they go around every day to check these things, because there's no thing sending it to a home office or nothing. These sites are just out there by themselves. There's no one watching over them from a computer desk. That doesn't happen.
So what was the safety monitors or whatever that Nicole Kessinger was in charge of?
Those were for the poison gas that you could breathe. So, remember what's his face? I think it was Troy said he was standing behind his pickup truck when it was running, and his meter was going off. That's what she was in charge of. Those gas meters, the meters that monitor the air you're breathing.
Okay.
That's what she was changing batteries on.
Okay. So Muckboy says his truck showed no one in cab. He couldn't drive to work with anyone is a passenger. Geotab proves no one in truck seats.
No one in passenger seat.
But it's only right. It's only the front passenger seat. It's only the shotgun seat.
Yeah, these are basic trucks. Some of them even had roll-up windows, not power windows. They don't have all these sophisticated things like sensors measuring everything. So, but they do have the normal stuff that every car does, and that's the seat belts. And make sure you're buckled up. So, if someone sits in that passenger seat, it's going to know. But the back seat gets loaded with all kinds of stuff, and it's not going to know if it's a person or not.
Yeah.
So they don't have sensors.
And this was a debate that I had with another channel way back in the day, that this channel was saying that all of the seats, including those fold down seats in the back that we're looking at right now, had sensors on it. And
No.
I researched this so thoroughly. I talked to people at Geotab. I looked through all the literature. Ain't a single fleet truck that has any sensors behind the 2 passenger seat, the driver's seat and the shotgun seat.
That's right. Because you load that stuff, the back seat up. I put so much stuff back there that the lights would be going off all the time, thinking there's people back there, but there's not. So that's why they're not monitored, because you put more than just people in there. You put things that you don't want to get wet because you have a bed, it's out in the elements. So you want something to stay dry. You put it in the back seat.
Right.
You're not going to put a seatbelt on it because it's not a person. It's not going to set any alarms off.
Yeah.
I get what people say that, but these are not sophisticated.
I know when I have like a lot in my purse and I put my purse on the passenger seat, that that notification, like somebody sitting in the seat will go off, and I'm like, I gotta get some shit out of my purse. Obviously, there's too much stuff in there. So
now newer cars, like I had rented a car a couple weeks ago, and it did have rear seat, but these are brand new. You're talking, this is 2018.
Right.
And this is a 2024 car. I mean, lots of things that happened. You had those people that locked their kids in the car, and they're in the sun in the summer, and they roast in the car, and they try and make the car manufacturers tell the people somehow that there's a child in the back because you forgot it. And it's like it's their job that you forgot your kid. It's not their, they're just pushing the back off. Oh, if my car told me that there was my kid back there, I would have saved him. Well, you should have looked. You know what I'm saying? They're trying to blame the car companies for their neglect.
It's freaking crazy. Oh my God. Oh, yeah, that's crazy. It's like, well, maybe if you were a parent and paid attention to your kid, you also would have left your kid back there. But Serena Williams says, why did Chris Watt's truck not undergo forensic testing? Good question. Nicole Kessinger's vehicle is never even considered as a vehicle to look at. And ostensibly, she sold it afterwards. I like the word ostensibly because I've never seen anything that told me that for sure. I believe she possibly could have and maybe did, but I haven't seen any receipt of sales record or anything like that. They didn't bother to confirm. And, as far as Chris Watt's work truck, and I know this is a repetition for many of you, they did, collect evidence from Chris Watt's work truck, but was it a forensic sweep? No, it wasn't. Like they didn't get the floorboards. There were certain critical areas where they should have gotten the floorboards, would have told us if Shanan was there or not. But then of that evidence that they did collect from Chris Watt's work truck, this is among the items that were refused from Colorado Bureau of Investigation on September 4th, 2018. Guys, this is why I say the investigation didn't stop when Chris Watts pled on November 6th. The investigation stopped on or before September 4th, a few weeks after this tragedy happened in 2018, when the Colorado Bureau of Investigations refused to analyze things such as trace lifts from the back seat of Chris Watt's work truck, trace lifts from the center console, and the driver's side seat cover of Chris Watt's work truck, among other things. Boom, because all that would have told them right then and there if his family was indeed in the truck, if they were alive or deceased, possibly if they did testing in the passenger seat, if there was somebody else in the seat, but they just said, okay, well, we have that evidence and we're not going to analyze it. What is up with that? The investigation stopped on or before September 4th, 2018, I assert.
It's nuts. You would think that they would go over that with a fine-tooth comb, because they would look at what this guy did. No one, like I said, no one thought about ever doing anything like that. When we have our safety meetings and stuff, we're not, make sure you don't stuff your kid in the tank, But no one ever thought about that ever happening. And this guy did this crazy, absolutely insane thing to his family, and they're not looking at every little thing. Like, the public ain't gonna want to know why or how this happened, and we don't know. We don't know how. You don't know how she got to the. We don't really know for sure.
We don't know.
That's why. So, I'm saying that she could have been in a truck. She could not have been. I don't know. What's all the walking around in the basement? I don't know. We don't know.
We don't know. I wish I did know. It drives me kind of crazy. I don't know, but we don't know. And that's true. What other questions do you guys have for Kevin? If you have some questions, put them in chat right now. I'm down to the current time in chat. So if you are able to type your little questions in the chat, I should be able to read them. Hold on, I'm typing something in. What else have we talked about that you have something to say about, Kevin?
I don't know if anybody else has anything else they want to know about Geotab. We didn't talk about Geotab very much.
We didn't talk. Tell us what you know about Geotab.
Geotab overlays where you're going with like a map system like Google Maps. So Google Maps knows, for the most part, what speed limit every road is that you're on, except when you go out to the boonies and stuff, it really doesn't keep track of that kind of thing. But it'll register when you stop for a certain amount of time. It'll say that you're parked, but you have to be in park. You know, the gear shift has to be in park. You see what else. You back into every space when you park. You don't pull in because backing is a hazard.
Right. And
so you want to be able to.
About that.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yep. And let's see. Speeding, of course. General bad driving, like hitting curbs and sudden impacts. With there is some stuff that it does measure, like wheel speed and all that, so it knows how fast you're going. And my last truck had camera in it. We talked about that, and it measured the retina in your eye to make sure you're looking out the windshield. And if you didn't look out that windshield for long enough, you're getting an email saying that you're not watching the road. Well, see if you're on the phone, and that would have been something if that truck would have had a phone or a camera in it. I'll tell you that. You would have seen a lot more.
Wait.
Well, maybe we wouldn't, but you would actually see what would happen inside because there would be video proof of it. Because all those things are recorded.
Yeah.
It's all recorded because of it. There's a wreck.
Yeah.
You have to go back in time.
So the purpose
before.
of Geotab, guys, right? Tell me if this is. So Geotab, the purpose of Geotab is to reduce exposure and liability for a company that has a fleet of trucks like Anadarko. So it's measuring all these parameters that are known to be data points, indicators of safety or not safety. So it's going to essentially give you a safety report on how a driver is doing in order to reduce their liability insurance wise, essentially, right?
That's exactly right. And you have a scorecard, and the worse you are, like you're in a green, yellow, or red. And if you're in the red, you get in trouble and you're told to behave better and whatever problem that you're having. But Geotab is something that's plugged into these trucks, and you get a little tab about the size of your thumb, and you have to be physically in your truck to start it. No remote starting. So you have to be behind the wheel, running the Geotab over the sensor. It will beep, and then you can start the truck. It has a starter disabled. You can't start it without Geotab. And then, let's see, where was it? Then you just try and drive as normally as possible, with all the rules that they have. But there are some, like idling. If you idle too long without moving, it'll send us alarm out that's annoying, and so that you either shut the truck off or move it a little bit, so that goes away. It knows everything that you're doing like that when you're sitting still, how long your engine's been running.
And all of those things are because they have been studied by, insurance companies that measure behavior that is risky towards causing accidents or any incidents that is going to be an exposure for a company like Anadarko that's going to cost them money. So that's really like the whole purpose of that.
Yeah, that's why the cameras too, because they want everything. They want to know everything that you're doing. It's kind of rightfully so. You're in their car, they're paying for it. They're paying the insurance. They're paying the lease, and if you screw it up, you should get dinged for it somehow or punished. But it's annoying. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's annoying to have the lens, thing pointing in your face
Wow.
the entire time.
That would make me crazy. I don't think I'd last too long at a job like that. Not me.
It's just something you have to get used to. It's gonna be in everything. So
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. So we have another question. Kim says, I had to join late. Well, welcome, Kim. I'm glad you're here. I'm sorry I missed a lot of this. Did he already talk about whether someone opens a hatch, like at the of the battery, to put the kids in? Would there be a possibility of them getting sick? Like, people talk about how, Jim apparently was sick, Nicole Kessinger was sick, that maybe that was a result of them being the ones who opened the thief hatches and took in those fumes.
okay, when we're building these sites and getting ready for them to produce, people stand up there 12-hour shifts. I was one of them. So I would be dead 30 times over if that was true. It doesn't smell good. That's about it. You're not going to get sick. And you can open the hatch with one hand. They have a flat latch that you push down with your hand, and some of them have springs that pops the latch right open. You only need one hand. It's not complicated. And it's not dangerous. From the point of, it's nauseous. Like I said, it could smell like a sewer treatment plant sometimes, and it can, it's not pleasant. But we stand up there 12-hour shifts, right by that hole, watching the water come in and out to make sure it doesn't, overflow. This is when we're getting ready to start site up. We're doing all this stuff with flushing water, so someone's got to be up there the whole time watching.
Okay.
They're watching with no mask on. There's no mask. You just look down in the hole. Maybe you have a flashlight at night, whatever. But some people probably would get nauseous over it, but you get used to it. There's people that work in sewer treatment plants that get used to it.
Was saying that she was so nauseous at the August 16th interview, she couldn't even eat. I think she hasn't been able to eat for a few days. If that was the first time she was exposed to the opening of a thief hatch and breathing that in, would it be plausible that she'd be nauseous for a few days? I guess that would be a question.
No. You'd feel better as soon as you got fresh air.
Yeah.
And you would get fresh air at the bottom of the stairs, just walk down the platform, whatever. But no. That was guilt, probably making her sick.
Yeah, I know, probably. Now, Brandon Bassett says, would Geotab almost be akin to a black box? And I can even answer this, but Kevin, I'm sure will back it up. Black box is going to have so much more information. Again, Geotab is going to be, and I know a black box will, measure a lot of the parameters that are going to measure behavior that are going to cause people to get in accidents, therefore increasing liability to a company like Anadarko. But for Anadarko, the entire purpose of Geotab is to monitor those behaviors that are likely to expose them to liability that's going to cost them money, right? So a black box is going to measure a lot more, I think. What do you think, Kevin?
It's basically a system where you buy something and then you plug it into hardware that's already on the vehicle, and it ties right into the computer, and that's how it doesn't do its own sensing. It reads what the computer in the truck's doing.
So is it reading the black box essentially?
Yeah, that's basically what it's doing.
Okay.
It's looking at that, and then through the internet putting you on a road that's, because of Google Maps or whatever. It kind of combines the internet with the real world, because you're driving down the road in a truck for real, but on the internet you're going down a screen, a line in the screen. That's, what I mean. So it's like bringing the internet and real life together. It's like an interface between the two.
Okay, that makes sense.
And but it's basically reading what the black box is getting. It's not putting a whole mess of new sensors in. It's just plug and play. You plug this thing in, and then you can set it to turn off in 5 minutes, or you can make the alarm go off, or maybe your seatbelt's not on, you had the alarm go off, or you can do all these different options with it and make it more strict or less strict. But it's basically just plugging into the black box, watching it, and then putting that information into onto like a web screen, so you can actually pull up a, let me think. It's on the internet, so you'd have to have something that you sign into Geotab, and it will actually show you a map of America, and then you can narrow it right down to your town, and you'll see all these little blue things running around on the roads, and that's your trucks. And then you can click on one of the trucks and find out what driver number that is and what truck number that is and how they've been driving, what they're driving right now. If they're doing 48 and a 45, they'll know straight away. If you're doing 53, you're going to get dinged. You know, it's like you have a little leeway to play with, but once you start going a little bit, past the leeway, the emails are going to get sent. So, and you're going to get told about it. So,
okay. All right. That makes sense. Now, let's see. So I just got to this point here in this footage where, we were just saying that we do see Chris Watts absolutely on the passenger side. That's like coming up right here. I know you guys can't all see it very well. This is like really small. Oops, I got to press play. But I was just looking for, I have an enhanced version of this video that I made myself, but I cannot personally find it right now. But we're going to see Chris Watts on the passenger side there. So just, for the accuracy of that information, he is seen on the passenger side. That's the side where he is seen with the gas can, just as Kevin was describing. We're going to see the light turn on, the courtesy light or whatever you were calling it. That's all going to happen in a minute. I'll go back to that because I feel like I'm just like waiting for paint to dry there. Now, Kim, we've already answered some of these questions that are coming in, but it's okay. But Kim says, why would Chris Watts be able to start any kind of explosion with that gas can? Could he survive but destroy those tanks the kids were in? And Kevin already answered that. There's no way that the kids, it was going to destroy the gas tanks. Those things are like made of Teflon, and there isn't even like live gas in those tanks. It's like it's more of a solid substance. It's really not all that flammable like gases and the other Anadarko explosions. We talked about
that's natural gas. That's natural gas. Yeah. Oil is completely different and much safer. But those clowns did Friday where they, look, I got a leak, and we'll just wait till Monday. No, that's you go and you fix it right then, because what happens Saturday if it breaks wide open and no one shows up till Monday, and you have a huge ecological disaster because we'll just push it off till Monday. It's not that big a deal. You don't know if it's going to be a big deal or not. You don't know what's going on because it's underground, that leak. So you go there and you dig it up and you fix it right then. You don't wait 3 days. Sorry.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, I agree. I mean, I think it's absolutely so stupid that they did that. My God. Oh.
Yeah. All those guys there, they're pretty annoying with how just nonchalant they are about it. Like, we're very strict here. Like, when we build a site, there's containment on top of containment on top of containment on top of containment, and then containments on top of that. Nothing is getting to the ground. If you have a spill of something, you have 7 layers of containment before, and that's usually a felt and a plastic, and then a felt, and then a plastic, and then a felt, and a plastic. And these guys just have oil pumping into the ground. We'll save it till Monday. Whatever. That would not fly here. That would, yeah. That's hard for me to believe.
Now, Private Eye has been giving us some little insights into what the explosion theory is, and says to Kim, the Lexus was meant to be driven out to Cervi 319, and I believe that was by Danielle Hadley. That was to be set on fire, and it would be a mystery as to what happened. But the person due to help drive it bailed on him. And then some other times I heard that, the reason they couldn't pull it off was because Shanann's passcode had changed on her phone, because it had changed to a 4 to a 5-digit passcode. And so anyways, that's for those of you that were wanting to know more details about that. Private Eye is filling y'all in on that. Private Eye also said someone else had knowledge of his plans and where the bodies were to end up, because that person eventually told the cops. See, I don't think that's the case, and I think that's because people say that, before he confessed and showed them where the bodies were, they had thought that they found, Shanan. Well, as soon as they drove that flew that drone over Cervi 319. Of course they're going to do that. That was a place where they knew when Chris Watts left his house, he went directly to Cervi 319, and they knew that in large part because of the Geotab information we're talking about right now. And what did Tammy say a million times? We know that the only way that Bella and Shanan and Celeste could have left Chris is in your truck. So what are they going to do? Knowing that the family was in that truck, they're going to follow the truck. The truck goes to Cervi 319, of course. Then they see the rake, they see the sheet, they see all these weird things. They're like, dude, shit's been going down here. They fly a drone over it. It was very obvious that there was a very disrespectful shallow grave that had been dug for Shanan. The earth was totally disrupted and like waved over and fucked around with. And there were all these miscellaneous objects out of place there. So I personally don't think it's weird that they had an idea that the family was out there before Chris Watts made those initials on that 8.5 by 12-inch piece of paper that they talk about. But that's just me. You okay there?
Sounds good to me. No, that's basically it. I mean, yeah, the Nate video was important because then that's how you knew that when he, nobody else exited that place besides him. No one left after him, so it had to be with him, and that was the Nate thing. And then Nicole with the worrying about the missed doctor's appointment, and then her coming over. I mean, he had a lot working against him, that's for sure. And he wasn't counting on such a support group, I don't think. I think he just thought that they would disappear. Maybe he thought that
what was he thinking? That is just one of the questions. What the fuck was he thinking? How was he going to explain that away? Oh, my family's just gone. Oh well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what are you going to tell her mom and her dad? What are you going? Oh, she just met some other person and they left and they took the girls and oh well. The whole thing falls apart pretty fast,
Right. It does. And Private Eye says, are the sheets left out not suspicious? So I'm not sure what you're talking about with the sheets left out. You mean the ones in the garbage of the house or in the field? I mean, there's a whole lot that's suspicious because it's evidence of a crime that was, very sloppily just left out to be evidence of a crime, like once people knew that the family was missing.
Yep, and you see how viable that Geotab was. I mean, they even found out that he stopped at some house that was being built, I think, and had one of those big dumpsters out for the crew to throw their garbage away in. He stopped and threw stuff away in there, but we never found out anything about that.
Yeah, no, that's right.
So, I mean, did they go get that dumpster? Did they find out what he threw away in the dumpster?
No, they did, but by the time they went out there, it was the 21st of August, and the crew that was working out there let them know that the dumpster had been taken to the dump on that Tuesday. So it would have been the 15th of August, right after the day after the tragedy. So he stopped there for a little over 4 minutes. He certainly discarded of some kind of evidence there. They didn't they didn't catch on to it quickly enough. They didn't get there until almost a week later. And of course, at that point, that dumpster had been taken out to the dump. So,
yeah, too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, you had it. They had him going to the thing and coming back, and they could have stopped there that day and, found out what he threw away, but they didn't.
Yeah.
I would think that would be pretty important that he's on his way back from where he left his family to the house to meet cops, and they don't see why he stopped along the way to find out what he dumped. That's just why.
It's just unreal. And this kind of goes along with what Serena says here. What we didn't see is just as important as what they showed us. And they definitely picked and chose what they wanted to present to the public. Absolutely. And they picked and chose what they actually wanted to investigate and follow up on. And the places where they really should have investigated and followed up that would have given them some actual material evidence and information about the details of this crime that to this day are still unknown. That's why we're here talking about it. They did not go down those roads, and that is certainly intentional. So, yeah. Well, I think I'm going to wrap up, Kevin, because we've been here for almost 3 hours, but thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and your know-how and sharing that with us, Kevin. I think it's really just so helpful to the understanding of the case. And, again, all you other channels, don't worry, Kevin's mine. I remember at some point when you were on the channel like a while back, armchair detective was like, oh, I need to get in touch with your oil field expert. I was like, I don't think so. No, definitely
Someone's using the pictures I took
not. Oh, really?
for you with the water bottle and the hatch. Someone took that off your thing.
Oh,
Because
really?
I didn't send them about. Yep.
Oh,
So someone
yeah.
else is using it.
That's interesting.
So
yeah, because I did show them in the live stream, so they could definitely grab the screen.
well,
yeah. Well.
Copyright infringement. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
But
but thank you.
I'm happy to help you guys. I understand the frustration with not knowing how certain things are, and you can't get any answers. So
yeah,
I'm happy to help with this. I can't talk about the law and all that stuff.
You have such specialized knowledge, and you know so much about it. It really is so valuable to this case, understanding this case.
Good. I hope I didn't make anybody mad by disproving their theories, but I'm just telling you how sites don't blow up because they're made not to. That's why they're built out of metal, and they're not built out of wood. Wood catches on fire, so
right.
They're built out of the things they're built out of, so they don't blow up and so they don't catch on fire. But you can try to do it. But
I think the really important connection you made was, I think a lot of the explosion theory had to do with that. The video of the explosion that Troy McCoy definitely did send to Chris Watts on his phone. I mean, where it's in evidence. I have it somewhere on my channel. Ara brought it to my attention. But the point that Kevin made, I think, is so important, is that was gas in a gas line connected to a house with flammable combustible materials like wood and lights and all these things, and it was gas. Out here at Cervi 319, it's in a tank and earth that's meant to not explode, and it's not natural gas, it's crude material. It's totally different, as he explained to us, but I never thought about it in such clear terms.
And 70% pure water, I mean, it's not 70%. What's in that tank is water. So you got that water is, and like a fire extinguisher. A fire extinguisher doesn't put out a fire. A fire extinguisher robs the fire of oxygen. Then the fire goes out. But I mean, that's how they were made at the beginning. Now there's foam ones and all kinds of stuff. But that's what the whole thought is of a fire extinguisher, is robbing the fire of oxygen. So you're taking away one of the things that needs to burn, and that's why the fire goes out.
Yeah, totally.
So you need the triangle, the fire, the fuel, the air, and the what is it? The fuel, the air, and something, the ignition or something. I can't remember. You need 3 things for a fire.
Yeah,
and if you take one of those things away,
you need oxygen, fuel, and the ignition source.
Yeah, I think so. The material or something. I can't remember what the third one is, but the gas can, him grabbing the gas can is interesting because that makes me think that he was going.
Oh, it's oxygen, heat, and fuel is what you need. Oxygen, heat, and fuel.
Heat. Okay. So yeah, that's what fire extinguisher does. It robs the fire of oxygen, so it goes out. It can't burn. But the gas can thing, I think that he was thinking, his brain was probably going 100 miles an hour, but maybe he takes Shanan out there and then lights it on fire, lights the whole, like the sheet and everything. But but that would be visible, and which would be bad. You don't want to cause attention to yourself, so a fire would be bad, even if it's along. What I mean? You saw that it's flat plane. So it's a flat plane. There's not like hills and stuff. So you're going to see stuff from miles away. And you don't want to start a fire 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
It's like I told you one time before, you're not going to drive up those dirt roads at 100 miles an hour because that's going to attract attention. And that's the last thing you want. You don't want people to look at you, what you're doing. And plus, you have the lease owner who's letting you drive on his property, and you're going to tear up and down there 100 miles an hour. He's not going to have that. They don't like that.
Oh, no.
But the big thing is like the attention. So you don't draw attention to yourself by doing crazy things like setting a fire, doing 100 on dirt roads. You want to be like stealth and, stay out of the light. So that's my theory.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me, but that makes good sense to me, Kevin. Everything you said makes good sense to me. So thank you so much. I appreciate the heck out of you, and thank you.
Yep, I'm happy to help you guys.
Yeah. All right.
It was
Everybody
fun,
say
too.
thank you to Kevin, and yeah, everybody say thank you to Kevin because he's awesome and he's ours. No, you can't have him other channels. No.
Could change my name to Trigger Warning. It's a good idea. All right, everybody. Nice helping you out and spending time with you.
Kevin. You know how much I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
And everybody have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Okay.
Awesome. Yay. So glad we have Kevin. Kent says, Kelly, you do a great job and always try to include anyone in chat. I do try to do that. Yes, thank you. You're the only channel. I will join the better financial. Oh, don't worry about it. We don't do too much member stuff anyway, honestly, unfortunately. I want to do more, but truth be told, I mean, that's just it. But thank you. I appreciate the support and your kind words. Thank you so much. And Piper Bewitch, we answered it probably 40, 50 minutes in. It's a sensitive topic. That's why I just don't want to keep going over it. I was talking about earlier when, we talk about those really sensitive, hard to talk about things. I don't want to do it frivolously. Just so please just go back and check it out there. But we did ask that. And I'm reading all of your comments. And I mean, even if I don't agree with the theory that you personally have, it certainly doesn't mean it's not right. And I do respect it. Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting tired, guys. So, yeah, glad you're here, Castle. All right, guys. So I am going to wrap it up. It's always so hard to say goodbye to you guys, but I'm just going to have to do it because I have to. But thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate all of you. Everyone, thank Kevin. And, more to come. More to come. And that's all I have to say. You know where to find all of the material and information about the Watts case. It is on my channel. I have playlists made so you can find topics you want to, hopefully kind of easily. But if you just put Watts the Obsession and the topic you're looking for in the search bar, you're probably going to find the video you're looking for. So, thank you, Carolina. That's very nice of you to say. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. All right, guys. Good night. I love y'all. Remember, life is hard, so be nice to each other. But most of all, be good to yourself because you deserve it. And I think you're awesome. So everyone have a good night, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks, Kevin. Again, thank you so much. You're amazing. Thank you.